And we'll be doing this batch of public comments, and then the council's going to have its time to discuss the items you see on the visioning workshop, and then there will be another opportunity for public comments at the end of the meeting as well.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor White, Deputy Mayor Martinez, other esteemed council members. My name's Tracy Barham, and I am here today as one of your Clean Energy Alliance Community Advisory Council members. And so I wanted to thank you for that opportunity. And just as a reminder, I am currently working on a master's in engineering, sustainability, and health, and I'm looking for all the different ways that I can bring that to serve here in Escondido. And we do deep dives into energy, food, and water, and so I'll use that to kind of structure what I'm going to talk to you about today. First of all, with CEA, I'm really excited to get into that. I recently attended the community engagement workshop that we did. I was in San Marcos because I couldn't make it to Escondido's, but it was still good to be there. And I will be at the booth serving at our fall festival for them, so that'll be cool. And be meeting with Greg Wade pretty soon one-on-one. Related to that, on the topic of energy, I am also talking with representatives of the Solar Rights Alliance and Public Power San Diego. So really looking forward to figuring out how I can support bringing clean, affordable energy to all of our residents. On the waterfront, I'm happy to say that I will be participating in the San Diego County Water Authority's Citizens Water Academy, thanks to a nomination by Rick Paul, your person on the board. And then last, on food, this morning, I had the opportunity to go down to City Heights and attend the ribbon cutting for Food Shed's food pharmacy. And it is super cool to hear all that they are doing. And it was great to hear Ellie give a shout out to the council, actually, for the support and talk about how Escondido is the hub for what they are doing there, that everything is coming through Escondido before it gets to the rest of the city or the rest of the county. So that was really cool to be there. And I just want to add my thanks to your support for that project. Supporting our local farmers and getting more healthy food to the people in our community is really important to me, and I'm really proud that that's happening here. And lastly, as a self-proclaimed tree hugger, I want to thank you for your efforts to increase our tree cover. I'm in line to get my free tree, and I can't wait for it to be planted. And I would love to help if there is a way, as a volunteer, to get the word out. I live in a neighborhood that's just outside of the priority area. I would love to go knocking on doors with some piece of paper or something that I could give them, because we could use some more trees in our neighborhood too. That's it. Wow, I made it under 3 minutes. Cool. Thank you for the opportunity to serve.
Mr. Mayor, do you want to take any of the comments that are going to be specific to the vision discussion?
We can just do them all now.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Stephen Wheeler.
Did you say this is a mic?
That's a recording device.
Oh, okay. I am Stephen Wheeler. Honorable civil servants, I'm here to propose again our City Council provides serious, proactive, and comprehensive consideration, ensuring our city take all necessary steps to independent assessment of a path to approval of retail adult use cannabis sales within our city, including a 7% city tax on gross receipts. I note disappointingly, though not at all surprisingly, the wording of one of our agenda items this afternoon. It reads, Cannabis Policy Implementation, and here's the operative phrase, considering resource constraints. This is the one and only agenda item which includes any such qualifier. Could you not find a more transparent way of displaying your prejudice, issue prejudgment, and full intent to bury this issue once again? You should have just said Cannabis Policy Implementation, LOL. This body discussed this issue during 2024. This after your receipt of a city-contracted voter survey indicating 61% of polled residents are in support, and to my satisfaction and enunciation at city council meetings, buried this issue for personal social biases rather than city business management best practices. It is oh so obvious that can be expected to recur. You're already doing it again. So, I've made my proposal once again. I full well expect you have already decided on an issue you know nothing about. Now retired as a former cannabis industry manufacturing director, as well as 25 years in biopharmaceutical drug manufacturing and quality control, if you care to know, I'd be more than happy to present an issue overview. Just ask. How about we go visit a Vista retail outlet together? You'd be surprised what you see and could assess the typical environs. Importantly, outside, if you know what you're looking for, and then inside. Lastly, I suggest in your spare time, you visit clinicaltrials.gov. Search cannabis. There are well over 1,000 clinical trials described in fair depth. I give special credibility to any trial conducted in Israel. They are more than a decade ahead of U.S. research. Just add Israel to your search term. Our residents have spoken. The business model is proven in our sister city, Vista. The deficit reduction potential is staring you in the face. You just don't want to know any issue detail, no less than acknowledge resident support. I offer this is not the way it's supposed to be. However hyperbolic, we do not have morality police in the United States of America. With respect, thank you.
Our next speaker is Patrick Holstrom.
All right. Hey, thank you for letting me speak today. I'm also going to touch slightly on the cannabis policy. So again, my name is Patrick Holstrom. I serve as the program manager for the Coalition for Drug-Free Escondido Education Compact. Our mission with the coalition is to prevent youth substance use through awareness, prevention, advocacy, and action. Over the years, I've spoken with some of the board, some of the council members, and with the mayor about the marijuana dispensaries. I brought different research and for both pros and cons. Since then, more research has emerged, and just recently in April, a study was published that followed more than 106,000 adolescents and found a few of these statistics with cannabis legalization. So there was a 26% increase in overall cannabis use, 43% increase in edible cannabis use, 34% increase in smoking, and a 28% increase in co-use of alcohol and cannabis. The biggest metric was that with legalization, there was also lowered perception of harm among youth. And then while cities often point to tax revenue as the reason for legalization, these tax figures rarely account for the added costs of included increase in fire and medical responses, law enforcement needs, public works cleanups, and higher rates of marijuana-related DUIs and injury. And then we ask that Escondido continue to uphold the current ban on marijuana dispensaries. But if legalization does move forward, we urge the council to establish a community advisory committee to shape the ordinance. Dispensaries should be restricted to just the business park on the other side of town, away from schools, residential, and low-income neighborhoods. Products should also face strict regulations for no flavored smoke products, no items that imitate youth-friendly branding, and limits on the product potencies. And then lastly, we ask that we strongly limit the number of licenses in our cities. Once we open this door, it's nearly impossible to remove licenses. And let us learn from the off-sale alcohol retail environment in Escondido. There are neighborhoods that are oversaturated with alcohol retailers. The city is not oversaturated. I've made that mistake in the past. We are a few licenses away from full saturation, but there's neighborhoods that are very highly saturated, and when you drive past those areas, you can see the impact that those liquor stores and retailers have in that area. So let us learn from that and create a safer ordinance to protect Escondido. Thank you again for your time and commitment to protecting our community. Our youth are counting on us to make the safer choice here and to not sacrifice their health and safety for some short-term tax revenue. Thank you.
The next speaker is Greg Oliver.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. We've spoken before. I study things. I study what's happening globally, nationally, regionally, locally, and I discuss it with people of varying political perspectives, sort of checking alignment. I run into very few people who think that we're at our best right now. Some people think we're finally correcting course after a long time of being lost at sea. And there's others who think we're headed right for an iceberg. To me, the difference indicates that we all have a different way of measuring the direction of our progress. And it surprises me. I shouldn't be surprised, but it does, because we've been given a sort of cultural compass. North on that compass is based on a commitment to aspire to treat all people equally. The aspiration is visible when we see people receiving equal opportunity and equal outcomes. Moreover, North is based on never obstructing another person from freely flourishing, honoring each other's access to life and liberty and unfettered pursuit of happiness. We first shared that definition of the North when we declared our independence from the oligarchs and politicians of the time, because the people could not abide the abridgment of their rights by rulers who would not even entertain the notion of universal human equality. The Declaration started a war that lasted 11 years. The end was we defeated the most powerful empire that the world had ever known. The compass that pointed to the new North is what guided the patriots to victory. At the time that victory was won, few citizens were aligned with the new North, but by holding each other to the oath and the commitment of the truth of it, generations have repeatedly made gains in accessing the rights that we once could only aspire to. Today, our culture strives to have a flourishing middle class, lifting the poor out of poverty, and being supportive and merciful to those that are the most vulnerable of us. And still, there are those that feel they deserve more than the rest of us. The compass's greatest flaw is that it only exists in national, regional, or local actions if we adopt it personally. And it resides in each of us because we hold these truths to be self-evident. If you don't use it yourself, it isn't driving your decisions, which is your business until your decisions affect other people. As the City Council develops their vision, we urge that you use the compass that you swore an oath to use.
Thank you, sir. Time is expired.
Thanks.
No one else has submitted comments, so before we move on, is there anyone else here who wished to speak on oral communications or on any item on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on.
Okay, we'll move on to the workshop, our one and only item, the Council Vision Workshop.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So we will start as we did in our last workshop with an opportunity for council members and deputy mayor and the mayor to share any relevant updates from their district that feel like they have bearing on our conversations today. So we are hoping to keep that to about 5 minutes apiece max so that we can keep on track. This is your chance to say here's what's happening in my district as it pertains to our agenda. You can start wherever.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. All right. So just a couple of things. As we're looking at budgeting, as we're discussing issues regarding that, some of the things that have been coming up in the past overall that have been spoken to us at council and has definitely come up in my district are concerns over fireworks. So that's one thing that I'd like to highlight. In my district, I've been getting a lot of traffic concerns. So there's an issue there. the number one issue across the city, also in my district, homelessness, as we look at budgets and how we're going to work this coming year, what we are, as a group, thinking about doing. And probably the last thing is, and first of all, I want to thank staff, and I want to thank City Council for working very hard to continue to get Country Club complete. It's not done yet, and it's been years and years and years. It's something that I inherited, but this is something that I hear on a regular basis in my district, that when is this going to be completed? So as we work on our overall plan, I think that needs to be highlighted as we bring that to a conclusion. So just in a very simple, short way, I would say that's what I would like to bring up regarding District 2.
Sir, next.
Yeah, I'll go next. So, I'll keep it short too. So I think the majority of the town's pretty excited. So District 3, sorry, District 3. Majority of the town seems to be excited about the change that have happened in our downtown area. I think there's been a lot of great opportunity and a lot of movement, a lot of cultural difference, I think, in our downtown area, where we're just seeing a lot more interest in art, food, traveling, tourism, and I think that we should be proud of it. I think as a city, as a community, we should be proud, because not only have we invested in terms of money, but we've also invested in terms of energy, we've invested in terms of effort, and I think not just the city, like I said, but the community as a whole. I think we should all be proud of what we've been doing there. And we should continue on that trajectory, because I think it's good energy that I think should be spread throughout the rest of the city. Even though we are seeing this, I think and I appreciate that the city staff has been working on development practices in terms of helping out businesses that are struggling, that have issues in terms of code, in terms of getting their business licenses. I've spoken extensively with Jennifer Schoenig, our economic development director, and I think she's always giving me good news, but we also just need to keep going and improving on it. There's always room for improvement. As the rest of the city, I'm sure you'll hear from every district, homelessness continues to be a top concern. Even though we have hit the big hotspots and we have continued to implement policies, I think that we need to see things that are a little bit more tangible. As we're seeing that things are happening in these hotspots, we see that the homeless are also spreading throughout the city, and they become a lot more visible. And I think there needs to be a lot of empathy towards them to make sure that we keep providing options for them, services, while also implementing our law enforcement practices. The rest of the district, we do need to, like I said, we need to spread that energy. I want to see a little bit more focus on East Valley Parkway. East Valley Parkway is such a economic hub for us. I think we have so many businesses over there. We have so many services, and I know that we've already been working in terms of creating a little bit of like tree planting. We've been working on infrastructure. I know that we have a project right now on East Valley Parkway and Fig. So I just want to see a little bit more of that, and I want to see more housing. I know that housing is always a contentious topic. We need more housing. We need to do it right. We need to be smart about it. We need to be environmentally conscious about it, but we also need to be economical about it. So I do want to see more housing and draw in more developers as well. That's it for me. Thank you.
Judy?
What I've had most recently, because of the cannabis issue coming up, is I've had a lot of young families, kids, young families moving here or seeking to move here, and then also parents of teen kids, just their concerns of what impact it's going to have, the messaging it's going to be having. So in doing so and speaking with law enforcement, what they have seen I've spoken with people from Vista that are on the sheriff's department there and the mayor of Vista, and just to kind of get some real live feedback from people that see things day in and day out. And some of the concerns that the parents have shown here that I really think we as council need to take into consideration is that the data has shown that young
Judy,
adults.
Do you want to save that for when we get to that
Yeah,
piece.
but it's just, I want to make sure that we are able to look at the data more closely, at how it impacts youth. Adults are able to handle it. They can do it in their own homes and keep themselves safe, but it's the youth that I'd really like to put an extra focus on, because they're the ones that we're trying to raise to run the city, so I want to make sure that we bring as much as we can there. Also, let's see. Actually, that's Prop S and cannabis, but I think Prop S.
Hold it for them.
Yeah, so, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, for District 1, I would say, housing is a big issue, affordability of housing. There are a lot of renters in my district, and, I worry about them being displaced and not having a place to go. I would say there needs to be a lot of more workshops and information on tenant protections, and also more responsive property managers. A lot of people don't realize that something simple like, selling food because it's as a side hustle for you to be able to afford your rent or afford your bills, but you're doing it out of your home, can actually violate and breach your contract, and then you could be like, you could be evicted. So having some more education for renters, I think, is very important. Traffic is always an issue. There's just, it really breaks my heart that we have so many pedestrian fatalities in our city. It's a huge issue in Escondido. It has been for a long time. So I would like to have some more intentional work coming from the city council to address that and mitigate that. There's a few problem areas on the 78, which also enters my district. During rush hour, the people coming off the 78 turning left on Lincoln, they completely clog up the middle intersection, and then that really short light bio super backs up as well. And I know we have some synchronization issues, and you've got like people walking, you've got the school bus. It's a huge issue, and that whole parking lot's a nightmare. So I just feel like there's some problem areas that I would like for us to prioritize around traffic. And also I see a lot of people biking in Escondido without helmets. So we need to do better about bikes, pedestrian safety. And people on skateboards and things like that. We haven't had a big issue with e-bikes like the coast has, but it's coming, and e-bikes are very dangerous, so I would like us to get ahead of that and really be proactive on public safety issues around pedestrians, biking. I know Compact does great work on that, and I would love for us to be, have a stronger presence as a city as well on these issues, because it's not just up to our schools, our police, and our nonprofit partners, it's really up to us as well as leaders. Parking is an issue in some of the neighborhoods because, rents are really high, so you have multiple families, multi-generational households, especially in my district, and we all drive. So you've got the grandparent, the parent, the adult children all have cars, and you only have 1 or 2 spaces allotted for your apartment. And then they want to, when apartments take new ownership, they changed the rules. So now what used to be 2 free parking spaces per unit is now 1 free parking space per unit, and now they charge you $50 for an extra one. And if someone doesn't have that money, guess where they go? Into the neighboring neighborhoods. There's some places in my district where they put cones and their trash cans are to kind of save their spots on public streets, which is not allowed. So that's an issue. We talk about housing, and I think that's very much tied to homelessness. I had an interaction with a woman at Fatburger, and she refused help. The paramedics were there, the police were there, but she didn't want help because she didn't want to get separated from her stuff. So I'd like to have like a more proactive conversation on homelessness, and see how we can intervene and support our nonprofits doing that work. Fireworks continues to be something that fills my inboxes, so I'd like us to finally make some headway on the fireworks. I talked about it last year. I feel like we're lagging on fireworks, and I'd like to get that moving. And also the immigration, you've heard it at our council meetings. I have a lot of immigrant community members in Escondido, but in my district as well, and that is something that I am constantly working on when I'm not at City Hall. I'm providing Know Your Rights workshops, I'm connecting people to resources, and I'm hearing from the businesses that they're feeling the impacts of their events not having people or their businesses not having people. So also, doing business outreach. And then again, with the permitting, my colleague, Christian Arcee also mentioned permitting. I get those phone calls too, and I know we're doing a lot of work around that. So let's continue on that path, and I'm glad that we have this customer service training and all that, and we have a plan, so it takes some time to implement that plan, but I would just say let's continue to do that. It's a huge priority. All right, I think I talked about housing, immigration, fireworks, traffic safety, speeding and bicycle. I'd like to have a, maybe with the social point or something, I would like us to have a little bit quicker response time on traffic inquiries, because maybe we do something for the short term, like we'll send a police officer to go and maybe study that for a week, but then what's the follow-up after that? I feel like we're missing a step after that on follow-up, and like if there's gonna be any action plan after that traffic study is done. I feel like that's a continual thing that comes up, and we don't really have it, I think, figured out yet, so traffic, that's all I have.
All right.
Yeah.
One of our public commenters kind of stated that you ask different people, you get different answers. But I will say over the last year, when I talk to people about the city, it is becoming more and more positive. I think people are seeing investments in tangible things like Grand Avenue and the Creek Trail. People who haven't been to the mall in a long time, who have gone, are shocked by how much there is to do in there. And then again, with things like Round 1 coming to the city, it's becoming more and more positive. I'd say my two biggest opportunities for improvement, people want more public safety, and in particular around traffic. Consuelo mentioned, the crosswalks and stuff like that. People are terrible drivers and they're not paying attention. And even in areas where we have, flashing lights, people just don't see them, obviously don't see them. And it can be dangerous, and people notice that, and then they don't go use the Creek Trail, or they don't walk their neighborhood. So something like that has a big impact. On the other side of public safety in law enforcement, people want more code enforcement. Again, you were the one that mentioned parking. People, they want to know why we have a local code, but when people park in the grass in front of their house, which is against the code, nothing is being done. But then a business owner who's just like legitimately trying to make ends meet gets tagged for their sign being improper. And people feel like that there's not enough code enforcement, and their priorities are probably not set in the right direction. One of my colleagues already mentioned processing times for permits. That is the number one thing I hear all the time by somebody who either did a home renovation, an ADU, remodeled their business. The amount of time it takes to get their stuff done, and the amount of money they spend during that time paying for a lease while they wait on the city and things like that, that is number one. But again, for the most part, the conversations are becoming more and more positive, and I think people just want to see their money well spent. More investments in the city with things to do, like, man, I've heard nothing but good things about a splash pad coming and the pump track. Those little things make the quality of life for some people in Escondido, and they want more of that. I've gotten comments from families about going to different playgrounds they hadn't been in a long time, and it's a brand new playground, and they love it. And they've been going to the park more. So I'll leave it at that. Overall, I would say the conversations are improving, but there's still lots of room for improvement.
Thank you. So this workshop, you all know, but just for everyone's edification, is a kind of continuation and a check-in on a progression of conversations that you have been having over years now as you worked to kind of refine a vision for the city and ultimately set some strategic direction for what you'd like to see, what kind of results you'd like to see different for the city than what you've been getting. So in March when we met, you outlined kind of big priorities for the city staff to allocate resources in alignment with. And today we're going to do a check-in. We're going to start with a level set budget, talk about the organizational work plan that was developed to deliver on your priorities. I think there are some great updates that you shared from your districts that both reinforce the work plan and maybe some things that are missing in the work plan or need to be kind of
I'm gonna
elevated?
be more bold than that. You've already hit the thing that I think is one of the most tangible things that isn't directed in the work plan clearly enough. There's been a concurrence, so I'm giving you a preview even before the budget. I've heard individually, and I hear from the community, a lot of the same concerns involving traffic and involving the fireworks situation. One of the things that's not clearly articulated is we have measures to maybe be more aggressive in that space in terms of enforcement or eyes on situations. I think one of the things that I'm going to be asking the council when we get to the work plan part of this is to prioritize the conversation around, and in the transparency associated with it, around things like flock cameras and drones, so that we can get more fidelity in those spaces. But I think having that conversation about what that means, what a camera means versus and what a drone usage means. There's internal usages for staff to do that may even speed up development processes or other conversations, such as we have not been a utilizer of drones even in our internal, except for a very discrete part of the police department. So we don't go during bird nesting season and use drones. We may contract out for that, but we might be able to speed up some processes if we were able to look around that to address housing needs and other things. So one of my requests is going to be, we got to have that informational conversation so that everybody understands what those tools are and how those tools are utilized, but that's going to be taking time to get in that conversation so that we can move into an implementation phase and see results in the field. So that's one of the things that I think that's the primary thing. A lot of what you've talked about has covered and is embedded in the work plan. I don't think that's discreetly pulled out. And so instead of talking about those things, I'm going to be asking council when we get to that part of the conversation, are you okay with the city manager elevating that so that we can have those conversations? It may push some other things back, I don't know, but I need permission to move into that space and be much more proactive in the space. But we were actually talking about this before the session even started, the entire team about this.
Timely feedback from all of you.
So.
Thank you.
But we're going to turn it over now to the budget conversation.
Yeah, so we're going to get a quick budget overview just to kind of set that context for us so that we can stay anchored in the fiscal reality for the rest of the discussion.
Big screen. Thank you. Good afternoon, City Council. So as Robin mentioned, I'm going to provide just a very high-level overview of this year's operating budget. I'm sorry, Christina Holmes, Director of Finance, for the record. All friends here. Thank you. So I'm going to start with a slide that we're all familiar with, but continues to be the reality of the general fund, and that is the general fund operating structural budget deficit. So as you're all aware, operating revenue has not kept pace with the growing costs to provide general city services. This forecast assumes the baseline level of service that we provide today, no new services or programs, and that revenue is consistently growing, but growing given our current revenue streams. Thankfully, with the approval of Measure I in November and the addition of the projected a little over $38.5 million in revenue for Measure I, City Council approved an operating expense budget of a little over $171 with those two funds combined. This is a list from both Measure I and the general fund of the items that were included in the operating budget, starting with the one-time investments that City Council approved. That included some critical public safety and infrastructure items with flooring, the public works yard, roof repairs, some repairs needed at Center for the Arts, the customer service initiative that is ongoing, funds set aside for a smart city, Ag Tech Innovation Hub,
resources to research a property-based improvement district, real property consulting, Reedy Creek Golf Course, and funds to support that facility. We're going to prepare a fleet services funding analysis this fiscal year to address that fleet replacement program. There were funds to replace critical public safety vehicles, 2 fire utility trucks and 3 fire pumpers. We set aside funds for water and wastewater services, and then also to replace 37 police department vehicles. Annual investments included some similar items. They just take multi-year efforts to address citywide elevators and HVAC duct cleaning. This is where the Climate Tech Energy financing was approved in this fiscal year's budget, and then some building maintenance repairs, rain gutters. Sister Cities International Travel was included as a line item. The funds set aside for community events for the mayor and each council member, an online community outreach tool. And then we took steps to address the police department's maintenance and operations budget, which if you'll recall has been fairly severely underfunded in prior years as we try to address the general fund deficit. And then for staff positions.
I think you can just move
Go
forward.
for? Okay, going too far. Go, okay, quicker.
We're in the midst
Gotcha.
of filling all those positions, but that in itself is a large task to recruit that many positions. The city has never faced, it's gonna provide a considerable boon. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna be out announcing the new Director of Development Services, which will allow Chris McKinney to move back into the city manager's office as a full-time deputy city manager and create more capacity in the organization. But I can't understate how much effort is being made to fill these positions so we can start to see the results of this. But nobody has in San Diego County is hiring at this rate in the municipal world.
And then just to note, there were items in those lists that we did pull from the general fund and are funded by Measure I this fiscal year, as we do try to address that general fund, or as we had to address it this fiscal year's operating budget. Moving on to specifically the Measure I local district tax. If you'll recall, the measure went into effect April 1st. The first cash distribution was received in July. The CDTFA is the facility or the state agency that collects the tax. We receive it 3 months behind. So we do have 3 months of revenue received. The first quarter total is a little over $8.2 million. The State Department released what's behind those numbers, the data behind that, just a little over a week and a half ago. So our consultants with HDL are analyzing that data. In October, we're going to have a full report of what those numbers mean for the rest of the fiscal year. And then circling back to the general fund structural budget deficit, recognizing that that continues to exist across the city. Noting that there are 2 items that over the years staff has taken steps to address the general fund operating budget deficit. The library was removed from the general fund 2 budget cycles ago. It is funded by American Rescue Plan Act funds through June of 2026, but that funding will end. That is not included in the general fund forecast. Center for the Arts as well was funded by ARPA for 1 fiscal year. And I believe that management agreement ends in June 2027. So that's the conclusion of my brief budget overview. I will be providing a full report to the City Council on the results of fiscal year 2025 at the October 15th City Council meeting. So those will be all the details of the results of the fiscal year. We will also, as I mentioned, have a lot more information on the Measure I district tax.
And that leads into this Measure I budgeting philosophy question that I need some input from council on. Because it's going to shape our journey through the remainder of the year and into next fiscal year.
Thank you. Any questions or additional clarification you'd like for Christie?
Just what was the projected versus, do you have that Cause we know it's 8 million.
For Measure I,
Yeah, just
that
for
is
the
what our
first quarter.
consultant is working on.
Got it.
Because sales tax is so volatile, the holiday season is gonna generate more revenue, so they're looking at the specifics. If that's mostly auto sales, is it retail?
Yep.
So we're gonna
I
have
was
that
just wondering
full
if it was
report
like
October.
definitely higher.
So we don't know yet.
Okay.
That's the answer. We wanted to
Too
get
soon to
you,
tell.
we wanted to get you that we had got the information about a
Got
week
it.
and a half ago about where we're at. What we can't tell you at this point is, what does that mean against
Okay,
expectations,
October 15th.
projections?
Yeah.
October 15th, we will have that.
We should have better,
Okay.
better information.
I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
Thank you.
Okay, so that, again, is just context, so that as we're continuing to think about the organizational work plan and the following agenda items, that's kind of the backdrop. The organizational work plan was shared with each of you. We walked through it independently. You thought about, how well that's aligning with what you think the city needs to focus its resources on. So what we're looking for here is you to flag anything that's missing, that needs more emphasis, so that we can align on a plan, right? The purpose of a work plan is so that the city staff know what your priorities are, right? What you want them to deliver on, how you want resources allocated in alignment with your priorities. So it's important for them to have clarity and direction.
I have a procedural question on the sister cities budget, so I know there's 25,000 for that now, and we're gonna like revisit sister cities at some point. It just hasn't really been a priority, but so is that 25,000? So right now, I know like Councilmember Garcia introduces the sister cities. So is that 25,000 just reserved for Councilmember Garcia,
So
or is that the whole council?
It's the whole council.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
We utilized a little bit of it to bring talent up for the Grito Festival, because that's one of the 2 events that the council is covering. That was the agreed upon, a spring festival and then this fall Grito Festival. So we utilized some of that money to assist to bring talent up this year.
Okay.
But it is still an open question. That's one of the things that I'm open to a conversation. I don't think we're able to get super deep on anything, but this is part of how do we schedule some things into the fall. And remaining in the fall and next year. One of the things that I want to just articulate is this is a check-in session where we do typically, structurally, you're going to have a meeting in March. So we can set expectations for the budget process. So one thing that I just want to make sure that this is check-in, say we're generally on the right path, and then more formally, we're going to come back and have a more expansive meeting next March about next year's, because we'll have a better idea about where, for example, Measure I revenue really sets against projections, what we can do, what results we've been able to gather to date. It's too early for us to measure results at all, because the fiscal year just started and we're just starting to see revenue and just making hires and acquisitions. So for example, on that report out of things that are happening, in October you're going to get a chance to approve the land use, the real estate management contract will be coming in front of you, so we can begin that work on city real estate, right? The PBID process is already underway. The consultant's working with the downtown business property owners to move some of these conversations forward. That will be coming forward. But as I mentioned, one of the things that to drive some of these things forward is I need to restore capacity, not just in other parts of the organization, but back into the city manager's office, right? So that we can really start to track some of these things long term. One of the hires that should be completed, I hope in the November timeframe, is the new development services director. So Mr. McKinney can resume his job upstairs, right? And we've just started this whole revolutionary for the city, but climate tech enterprise, right? Which is going to be a huge change for us and a lot of investment going into our facilities to upgrade, to get that energy savings that we're investing in. There's a lot going on. one of my concerns was on the work plan was the conversation the council brought up on two components, one about traffic and one about the fireworks conversation. I think we need to have some policy conversations with the council. And I need to, and the council also knows we've had some conversations in closed session, apologies to the public, about some other enterprises that are blossoming right now for the city. I need to preserve some bandwidth for that, those enterprises, and for, I think, this important conversation around traffic and around fireworks and use of drones and enforcement, right? And so what I would like to do is get your permission in the work plan to prioritize that work and carve it out. I do need to do some reshuffling in that space, but that was one of my major concerns since March to today. Those conversations have been a regular part of what we're doing. But I need you all to agree that I can take some time to reprioritize some work to get that done. Because it's going to take up council meeting time to talk about what is our drone policy, how do we use this information, what do we do, and the public is going to demand to know what we're doing with each of those pieces of information in front of us. And opportunity happens that we have a new police chief who just started, and he's itching to get into this conversation. But the city attorney's office is going to need to be in that policy conversation. So that's what I'm looking for is, are we kind of on the right track with where we were, and understanding we have room for improvement to get, but also, can you give me license to elevate these issues on traffic and on fireworks that everybody seems to be talking about?
Are you asking for that now?
I'm asking
Okay.
for that to amend the work plan. I don't have a solution to that, but because I need you guys'
Right.
input so I
See,
can
it's a
start
priority.
working, prioritize that and start
And
bringing that.
Would those policy conversations happen as a council in council meetings or a
Yes.
subcommittee?
I believe they should happen in council
Yes.
Yes,
meetings
I agree.
as a because again, I think the community is going to really need to hear.
Absolutely.
So
Maybe part of
that
that.
because there are concerns all over the spectrum about each of those engagements and using those
Yeah.
tools.
I bet you just these 5 opinions here are probably a very large spectrum.
And then so yes, for me, the traffic and fireworks definitely, and I just want to say, at some point, I just want to get a little more clarity on that Sister City budget item and how
Well,
it
this
impacts
is an opportunity to have that conversation. I was telling you what my primary concern was, because I'm seeing the calendar get occupied, and we really haven't had a chance to have this, which means to elevate this, I am going to have to rearrange a couple things to get to these policy conversations, because without the policy conversation, we can't move into implementation. And we actually have some funding to maybe do some of those investments, which we haven't had in the past, that funding to do it, right? There was a secondary conversation that came up around traffic that we're trying to break open a little bit, and this is another request I have with the council members, is we would like, as staff, to do a session in each district and one with the mayor, utilizing one of your community meeting forums at the schools or another city location to talk about our CIP program. And part of that is traffic investments, where traffic investments are taking place. Because as you know, as you saw in the budget, we've acquired a new social pinpoint tool that we're trying to utilize, and it's a learning experience for us a little bit too. As I relayed to at least a couple of you, one of the challenges with the social pinpoint tools, the initial choice was to keep it all anonymous. So you can report and say, I want this improvement here, that improvement here. Well, we've run into the shortcoming of that, keeping it all, you can just comment. We have no way to have a dialogue with whoever left that information. So another request is in November and December, scheduling with each of you one of your community meeting dates to have this presentation from staff about the CIP budget so that you could start thinking about that and what investments you want to make and what the community is requesting for next year's budget process. That's a significant shift for us, is to go out and actually, in the fall, ask the question of where and what and how. Now with the social pinpoint tool, and we'll be doing that as part of those sessions, it gets you to identify these places. Right now that tool, thanks to Teresa and her team, is live right now. But as I said, that initial pass was to make it really low barrier. But if we can't have a dialogue with you, we don't understand where the problem is. So we're going to be changing that process to actually ask people to register now. All right, so that is a shift, but otherwise we cannot have a dialogue. What did you mean? What is that? What's that location? What are you experiencing? We need to have that feedback loop in place with the social.
Will the response be public as well?
Yes.
Great, because like, for example, someone asked, this is before the Washington Park Playground,
Yep.
when will it be open? And several people liked it. So that could be like, someone comments below and then everyone sees the response because multiple people had the same question.
Yes.
So okay, great. I'm excited about that tool. And then I like the idea of like having the CIP budget workshops in person. I think that's great. And you're trying to do that for October, November?
For November and December.
November, December, okay.
So I'm asking you to give up one of those dates
Right,
that
'cause
you
we have
agreed
4.
on. You have 4.
In the budget year.
In the fiscal year, but we would like to schedule that with you and begin scheduling that now so we can do that workshop and get from your district and obviously Mayor citywide what it is people are looking to do.
Awesome.
So if the work plan is the plate and is full right now, what I think you're saying, Sean, is we need to take something off of the plate or de-emphasize something to make room for traffic and fireworks. And you may have other areas where you think emphasis needs to shift to you. We will come back to them with, here's what I think we can reshuffle.
Yes, but I needed that agreement to promote that to a higher priority level than where it's sitting.
Is anybody opposed to that? No? Okay.
So we're not making that decision today.
No.
We'll wait for you to bring some.
I needed to hear that I was hearing it individually, right? There wasn't a good forum for us to have this conversation, right? That's why I think it is important for the listening session. I had heard that from you each individually. I had just, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think you're okay.
I can't take that as an action.
Well, and you can't say what the other is saying.
Yes.
So an individual conversation can't be shared.
And so,
there's a consistency.
but I had heard that consistently, that this was one of the biggest issues facing the city. And I think we can be more active in that space than we have traditionally. I just needed it prioritized.
Cool.
So individually, you collectively named some other areas that you felt were missing or needed emphasis in the work plan. So this is our opportunity to surface those things as a whole group and discuss and debate them and determine where you'd like to give Sean further direction.
So this would be an opening for the sister
Yes.
city conference.
Yeah, so on the Sister City, so we had it, just because I saw it on there, I never, so we had a meeting and it was in a format similar to this in a room, right, in the Mitchell room, and there was how many people? They're friendly cities, right?
Friendship cities.
3?
Friendship.
Yeah, so there's 3, right? 3 so we have 3 friendship cities, initiated by my colleague, Councilmember Garcia, and then there was a proposal, the $25,000, which was going to cover miscellaneous expenses, including there was a group there for meetings and things like that. And then we were going to continue the conversation to see, well, does that, kind of more clarity around what is that budget going to be used for, because we didn't have those answers that night. And then are we going to have more sister cities, or is this kind of like, just continue the conversation, because I haven't really
review if
like
they
process
continue with those cities, things like that.
or do we add more and we each
What's the
propose our
plan?
own, and kind of how do the other council members kind of integrate within that as well? Because it's technically the city, not just, right? So so I just wanted clarity and having a conversation around the sister cities, because I do get some questions sometimes about it, and I'm not really sure kind of like what's going on. I know that there was a couple trips I think that happened, but then I don't really know very much after that. So just a plan, or like, you know, and we haven't continued the conversation. So
I was going to say, just real quick, I've spoken to Sean a few times about the possibility of just creating a Sister Cities subcommittee that can go over some of that and make future plans and then report to the city council.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. What I would like to, yeah, I was the initiator of the concept of that, and but under no circumstance, and I wrote the policy. Was it ever designed, wished for, or expected that it would be something personal? That's always been, and I think if you read the policy, it's a citywide policy. At the time, we weren't sure exactly. We're asking for a very basic budget, and you're right, we were not that night ready to be able to say specifically it's going to be this and this and this and this and this. And we've had very limited expenses, particularly just the travel that happened to actually sign the MOUs was the only expense that happened up until for the Grito, which was another thing from the sister cities. Other than that, there hasn't been any other expense regarding the sister cities. We've had a couple of times we've had sister city representations come over on their own expense, and we have in October again coming a delegation from one of our sister cities in Oaxaca, once again on their own expense, which was one of the discussions that we have been having. But the policy is open for anybody to be able to put forth and ask, and then finally we all have to decide. We're just following the policy. We all have to decide if that's something that we want to do. One of the things that I realized was that, yeah, we do need to have probably an end date where it's not just an open, oh, we're sister cities and we're sister cities forever. Not that that was in the MOU, but I think that every so often, every 6 months, every year, it needs to be reviewed. But those things we can take up on in a subcommittee. But just to offer some context and clarity within the policy, that's all there.
I have a question about, so you gave direction to the city staff around your big 5 priorities, which we worked a little bit, but were public safety, security, business friendly, community development, organizational capacity, and financial stewardship. Where do you see the sister cities fitting within the priorities?
Well, overall, we've
well, it's already something we've passed. It was just more big clarity about the, you know, how the rest of the council kind of integrates within this new process that's very new, right? Mm-hmm. And really, most of the communication has been going with Councilmember Garcia because he initiated it, right? So he's kind of the point of contact. So
well, I think
the subcommittee idea is fine, but maybe continue the conversation.
So part of it is that the subcommittee, I sat in on the last economic development subcommittee, and I worry about placing it in the economic. There are things in economic development, and then there are other things as well, right? So I think it might be worth having a chance to have another conversation about the policy and sitting down about the subcommittee in front of the council. Because unprompted by me, I would like to know where that fits in the priority set as I'm trying to balance some things out. I'm worried that it gets a little lost in the economic development subcommittee, quite honestly, in that how does it rate against those other priorities? But I think it would be good to have council input, some of the questions answered, get a more formal budget for that enterprise. So I'm willing to schedule that on a council meeting at a future date to get some clarity and agreement around.
I think this is a great example. This is me with my strategic planner hat on, so I can't help myself. This is a great example of being really clear and disciplined together about opportunity costs, because you have laid out priorities, and you have historical relationships that you have to honor, and also you have an opportunity to decide, is this the place we want to invest more in? And if we do, there's an opportunity cost. There are a whole list of things you are not going to be investing in then. So spending some time really deciding strategically where this fits in your list of priorities, and does it deliver on your priorities as well or better than other things you could be investing in?
Yeah, because I agree with the city manager regarding it could very easily get lost because it has an economic development component, but it has a cultural exchange component, it has an educational exchange component, it has an arts component. So it fits into all kinds of places, and we don't have, so I think that subcommittee actually is probably a very good place where we can get started in the conversation to clarify that more.
I think it could also be really beneficial to get really clear on what are you intending, what's the value you're intending it to deliver to Escondido, because that will help the city be able to then say, how do we track that over time to make sure we're getting what we want from it?
And I think when we get to the brand conversation, this is an example. If we have if staff has a clear idea and consensus from council, then we're able to market it and sell it appropriately. I think a little bit right now, that's one of our challenges is it's moving and it's great and it's fun to be part of. I mean, staff has had some fun in some of these meetings, but what exactly would we be selling and what is the intention, the final deliverable? And Councilmember Garcia and I have had that conversation about how do you build it to be successful and sustainable. Right.
So other aspects of the work plan that need to be, or missing aspects of the work plan that need to be serviced and discussed here.
I don't know how much this needs to be discussed here, but Councilmember Garcia said it earlier with respect to tangible solutions to homelessness. You know, and the reality is we're still years away from building any kind of a new homeless shelter, but looking for or considering opportunities for things that could happen now, like utilizing unused shelter beds that are here in the city and things like that.
So one of the things that I wanted to share is, and this is just what, when we track homelessness, and maybe this is again something to feed back to the homeless subcommittee, is getting more tangible in this space. So we measure the hours spent by the public works team doing that. We list the number of service requests we get. We list the number of cubic yards removed. We list the number of individuals whose belongings were stored for retrieval. We list the total amount of damages that we've repaired associated with homeless activities. On the public safety side, we talk about the calls for service, the number of crime reports. We talk about how many we connected with a mental health clinician, and we do have some outcomes. We talk about 161 crisis interventions that we did last calendar year, with 46% of those in treatment, and then some of them unfortunately ended up in custody because of those encounters. We talk about community events. We talk about care coordinator events. I urge council to look at this, but I think this again, is this the right, sometimes what you're trying to accomplish is in what you're tracking, right? And one of the questions I have is, sometimes you name a goal, so is the goal explicitly we want to build a homeless shelter, right? And then you start tracking against that. And getting the council to sort of articulate that, I think makes this more tangible. Because right now, what I feel like is we report out on these numbers on an annual basis, and there's a lot of effort that goes into this, but I don't think it may be meeting the need or still articulating what people want to hear. So one of the questions I've got for the homeless subcommittee is to, and the council as a whole, is to look at what we're tracking and then say, what is our goal against this? what impact do we want to make out there, and maybe changing our measures to chase that impact that we're striving for. And then we can measure against that impact. As opposed to, I'm not saying that cubic yards of debris removal is a bad thing, and in fact there's a level of effort that's astounding there. But maybe we need to be talking about the thing you were talking about, Mr. Mayor, beds, like how many times we've gotten somebody into long-term care. And some of that's also changing how we measure that, because I think we do that through some of our service providers, but that's not what we're reporting out as city action. So I would be urging the subcommittee to pick up this list and start asking the question, what is it we're trying to achieve?
And are our measurements aligned with that?
Yes, and then bring that back to the whole council to say, okay, that's what we're trying to influence, that's what we're trying to change.
Yeah, I can live with, I understand what you're saying. I think the expectation from the community is, hey, we voted for Measure I and homelessness is the first dot, so now what are you doing?
But that answers, I mean, what we're doing right now is we're increasing the cops, we've increased the cops team. I think we're gonna see a rise in the number of clinician referrals, but is that really what you're talking, I mean, and you're gonna have some conversations coming up, because the other thing you mentioned is, remember I talked to you all about revisiting the question around how home funds are being utilized in the community. One of the things you could take a more direct action on when we get to that is spending more on rental assistance, which would qualify as homeless prevention, and answer some of the questions I think Councilmember Martinez brought up about those proactive spaces. Like, so if you decide to use your home funds for rental assistance, you're doing that for a specific purpose, right? You're doing that, and we could report out differently that those are the proactive steps that you're taking, right? But changing it around and having that dynamic, and then when we get into CDBG allocations, is that the council's chief priority is homelessness, and maybe matching some of your CDBG allocations with additional investment for Measure I to see more community benefit.
I have a question regarding, as far as the services, we're talking about filling beds and providing more beds. It seems like we're just looking at Escondido as a whole. Have we forged any partnerships, or are we looking outside of Escondido's? I know there's some regional services that maybe we could take advantage of as well, and what are your thoughts on that?
It's funny, we took I was beat up a little bit for taking an Escondido first approach, but then when you start touring some of these other assets in the region, they are very focused on the neighborhoods around them. And I think that's what you're gonna find in most places. And as far as like open beds, there aren't any other shelters in North County, really. Who was it? Vista just opened one that I'm sure is full. These are the only consistently vacant beds in North County.
I think there's a couple, maybe you can.
What's that?
I'll find them, but there's a couple that are opening up.
Yeah, Oceanside said that was the rescue mission. It's now, Interfaith is now,
Yeah.
but it is dedicated to Oceanside.
Okay, but it's beds, right?
There's
Yes.
one in Paula that is open now, and they're offering it, they've extended it to Escondido.
Where is this?
It's Paula, it's a 50-bed residential treatment program.
Yeah, that's treatment, which is also good. There are definitely treatment beds available through the county, in particular
Well,
through
it's housing
Salvation
and
Army.
treatment, yeah.
The need here, like, I guess the goal, Sean was saying, we need to shift our what we want in the end. I think what the community wants to see is fewer homeless people on the streets, and how do we do that? Have shelter beds.
I'll chime in as the other person on the homeless subcommittee. I think as we see, one of the things that as we talk about tracking and checking on the data that's coming in, that is not Escondido strictly, but what we see across the country when we do our midnight count, time of the count. Escondido has seen a decrease in the homelessness. This is just, and this is based on the numbers that some of our partners have gone out and did the count. This is not the city of Escondido doing that. But then we have the next steps. What are we going to do? And I think this is our discussion, is the way I'm taking it today, is to make sure, I would like to see that we elevate the next step. And if we all end up agreeing on the next step, I think that as we come into it, it's going to be how we're going to get some more people off the street as we talk about the regional solutions. And some of us believe that as people were being brought in, as Escondido being one of the regional solutions for the homelessness, were being brought in from other jurisdictions and being dropped off in Escondido. And I was one that didn't believe that. I was like, that's not true, until I began having constituents showing me video. Oceanside homeless outreach team, a van here in Escondido dropping off their homeless. And then I was like, oh wow, this is really happening. As a former chaplain with Escondido Police Department, when I was out on patrol with them in a ride-along, I would hear the conversation. Oh, I was brought from Ramona to Escondido to receive services. And I began asking what's going on, and this is one of the issues I think that we ended up. That's why our policy, Escondido First, we brought it forward, we made it public, and we got beat up quite a bit for that. But I begin to realize that some of the other jurisdictions are doing the same, just quietly.
For sure.
So they weren't willing to go public with it. So I think at this point, I think we're probably ripe for that time to have some beds, so we can begin to take that next step. Some beds were approved for addiction services here in Escondido. I was one of the ones that voted against it, and I also said, prove me wrong, please. And it certainly seems like I've been proved wrong. We received our first report. There hasn't been an increase. The people that came from outside Escondido were taken back, and I said, okay, the rules are being followed, the policies are being implemented. Well, I'd like to see that now with beds too. So as the counterpart on that, or the other member, I think it's worth for us to collectively, if we can come to a consensus, bring that as a priority, and then look at where we get the funds for that. And if that's going to be from these different revenue streams that we have, that we can give the staff, say, okay, this is the vision that we have. Now it's for you to get, down and figure out exactly how we can do that. But I think that we're at the right time to get this done.
So take it.
I was going to say, what do you need specific from me?
So what I think I understand that we can take it back to the subcommittee to bring back to the full council with the idea of getting better goals set of what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to change the environment, right? And then realigning our measures to report about that as that intention.
I think people would be blown away if they saw the real cost of this issue in the city. I don't think people take into consideration the whole scope of it. But what we are being judged on is, are we seeing more or fewer people in the streets?
Yep.
And I think we need to make the changes to reflect that.
All right.
I also, as part of the subcommittee, just one thing I want to lift up, I'm really curious as to what's happening with the conversation on the by name list. It's been a conversation for years that I've been hearing about. Is there any movement on that? And if not, why? What's the barrier? Because I think that is so important. So I'm still very okay, the by name list.
Oh.
So knowing who so one of the things, because I know our police kind of have their own by name list, but one of the things that I kind of feel is like that issue that we come across is.
So we don't have a by names list. We know the individuals
right,
because they're in front of us.
Yes, you know them by name, but yes, there's no official list. I hear you. So I'm still kind of taken back by that situation that I had with that woman at Fatburger, where the fire department was there, and he's like, we asked certain questions to determine whether she was mentally kind of healthy, but the people who know her say, yeah, she definitely has mental health issues. Nonprofit providers who've helped this person know her name and say that she has mental health issues. But when our paramedics gave her this question test, she passed the test. She had a huge sore on her leg that was huge, and it's going to become gangrene if she does not take care of it. She refused to go to the hospital because she didn't want to get separated from her stuff, even though we were promising her that nothing would happen to her stuff. So that is like a mental health issue. So I feel like that's a lot of the people on the street, right? Is like this block with like not leaving their stuff, and I don't know. I feel like we could make some progress if we had a way to address that.
So the last meeting I had was with the district attorney's office.
Yes.
We were talking about a by name list and an app. That was
Shelter Ready app?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The by name list, there were too many issues surrounding HIPAA, because
Yeah,
once somebody goes and gets services, their information can't be shared. And it's almost,
And there's no loophole around that?
not according to the district attorney.
There's no.
Okay.
There's no.
And I was
Very strict
just
standards.
taking her word for it.
I like
I
your
think
thinking though.
before,
I think they should be a
I like where
practical.
you're going.
yeah.
I just feel like it's a missed opportunity, and like the thing is that people, some people are refusing help, and that's not helping the situation. And even if there was beds, they would, they have to agree to go there. So,
Well, before, because this is fairly new, I think it's been less than 10 years, but before when you would come across somebody that had clearly some serious mental health issue that they weren't able to make good decisions for themselves, law enforcement or paramedics would be able to make that determination based on a set of questions. But then something changed, and the questions, and basically, they weren't made a ward of the state. What's the other word? When conservatorship. Yes. So then they were able to either assign somebody or even something on the spot for conservatorship to be able to have somebody make that decision for them. But that was removed. Is that
So-
that's what? So I think it's a state.
Supervisor Desmond hosts these meetings with all the North County mayors once a month, and for several
Yeah.
months, we were also meeting with Dr. Luke Bergman from the county.
Mhm.
And I think the issue with that is preventing it from being a reliable program is the funding and the resources. There just aren't enough of those medical professionals. And then I think it has something also to do with the justice system that is also stretched thin, so just the resources aren't there to do that.
was that a recent state proposition?
Wasn't
I
it,
feel like
isn't it
it was
going
one of the
through?
props.
It was around,
Something right
we
now?
were talking about it around the same time.
It's not 36, but it was like Prop
Yeah, it was 2 years
1 or
before that.
something. Yeah, it was like, I think on the proposition. I remember it being on the ballot. I think that's what it is. It was around having like conservatorship or, I think it had to do with like the courts.
But that,
The care.
Care court.
The care
It might have
court.
been around care court.
yeah.
Is that
Which is still
similar?
kind
There's a
of
lot
up
of
and
things.
coming.
Yeah.
I think they're still
But I mean, these are all
working.
things for me because I'm not on the homeless subcommittee, and because we all get reached out to by our community. How do we kind of tell the public this is why we can't do that? Because the public will tell us, why don't you just get vacant land and build tiny homes, or why don't you just get vacant land and put cots there and house people? It's not as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
But so for me, it's just helpful to kind of know what's been tried and hasn't, like this by name list. There's HIPAA rules and we can't get around that, so we can't have a by name list.
They have to get at the community.
Just for us to be able to articulate what's been
Some
tried and what the
talking
barriers are, whether it's systemic, legal, or financial, because, they want to hear from us. They want to know that we're taking this issue seriously. But I feel like I would like to hear more, not being on the subcommittee, not being in the mayor's.
I was gonna say, none of that stuff we learned through the subcommittee. I primarily got it because Supervisor Desmond is awesome, and this was a huge topic of discussion for several months, and he put the resources in front of us to get our questions answered.
And I got a lot of my information from the police department and what's going on, listening from there and asking a lot of questions. Because the care courts and stuff I heard from the police department, they were very excited about it, being able to kind of go back to what it was, but then it got watered down. So that's where I got a lot of information.
So,
Maybe updates on the council every 6 months or something. I don't know.
it would help you be
I
able
think
to
it would be
communicate back
good.
to your.
Just to show progress on the issue with the subcommittee,
Well, I give you talking points too, as well as you get those questions, you'll have
Right.
a little
Just to be
more
able to share
definitive
progress
information.
with the constituents.
Yeah.
Because they do, you know, instead of us individually, we can actually give updates from the council on this issue, like what we're collectively working towards.
Okay, so what I'm hearing in this conversation is homelessness, the goal is fewer homeless people on the street, that the subcommittee needs to take a look at the things that are being tracked and reported on, so that we are measuring and reporting on the things that matter with respect to that goal. That it would be nice to have some talking points, to be able to share updates regularly with your constituents. And that shifting some focus to traffic safety and fireworks needs to happen, but there are some policy discussions that have to happen as an entire council before you can really take action on those things. And you would like to move the sister city conversation to possibly a subcommittee to develop a more kind of formalized plan or program with some parameters.
Yes? Great.
So far, so good.
Thanks for capturing.
Anything else? We only have a few minutes left on this particular agenda item, so if there are other adjustments to make to the work plan, now would be the time to do it. I'll also just say that work plan is, I think, like the best thing that we've had in our pursuit of a strategic plan.
Yeah.
So really excited to see your priorities get brought down to that level. And huge thank you to the staff for doing that. I think Joanna and Zach led that effort, and it really looks beautiful thanks to I'm sure Tracy's team. So, great work.
Does anybody else need to use the restroom before we move on to this
Yes, I
next?
am.
Okay, let's take a break.
As soon as it breaks over, then I'm gonna want to go down.
So it works.
I'm glad you got it. If I had a soup dish in my car, I'd get you one. I think I gave it to my mom.
I'll get another chair. No. One of them was too hot for
Did he make it out to help?
I have not seen a report since 11, so I hope he did.
There's not vultures tearing at his
Let's
carcass.
see. No, he has not responded since 11.
We're going back to the branding discussion.
I think we have the
Gravity helps.
budget item, Measure I and
Measure
budget
I
philosophy.
first. You're right, sorry. It's on
Once you just hit
the browser.
Are there cookies?
Yes, there are.
Oh.
There's Chips Ahoy and Oreos.
protein bar.
Zach, don't shame me for the Oreos.
I know. I feel bad all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's right.
I know. They're like some things, I think they're nostalgic. I have friends who can't get Oreos without milk. Yeah, there's milk, I just can't do it. Not worth it.
You got it?
Okay for today.
How ironic.
He loves history, but no, it's not. He loves history.
My first word, no joke, my immediate thought process was, that's a great idea.
It's from the decade. It starts, well, it's actually
They're not gonna be able to do
right?
that.
So it starts, at least the first semester, so it starts with the declaration.
But the county made it sound like, oh yeah, it's definitely possible. We're gonna lead the charge.
What's going, how,
I know, right?
separation of powers, all that. No, I think it's cool. It's minutiae.
I still have 30 anyway.
Yeah.
I think right. No, I don't. I didn't mean that.
No, I'm not gonna.
Question mark. It sounded like a question mark.
I'm filling in the question mark.
I'm that. There are new things.
So, okay.
Oh, it just gets better from here, right?
Oh, it is. You don't remember. You don't remember.
Between 15 and 25. That's what
It doesn't get better.
he is gonna turn. He's 17 yet. 17 heading 22.
Okay, so you're only.
He's full on only child. So.
I have 3, but 2 of them are not child. And my youngest, he's for all intents and purposes an only child, so I feel that.
Everything's for me.
I know.
It's all about me.
I try really hard sometimes to be like, no, just no, because I know I don't raise my doubts. But it's easy when it's just one.
It's too easy.
I know, especially it's me in one, so I don't even have to go wrong.
And you're not warned down not to say no anymore.
Yeah, I know.
I'm saying yes just to get you away from home.
Okay, whatever.
What kind of deal can we strike?
Yeah, for the young kids, always got it easy.
I know, Yeah, your
Parents are worn down.
out.
Is that accurate?
Did you get a chance?
Or realize it really doesn't matter what
No.
I do.
He just thinks everything is a negotiation, and so sometimes I
Yeah.
say,
Well,
no, this is not actually
Yeah,
gonna be
right.
negotiated.
That's this generation.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
The expectation that they have, I mean, it's gonna be a beautiful thing for the world ultimately, I think, but it's a really hard thing for parents and for people who have kids.
Huh?
That generation.
It was. I was trying to be polite, you know?
So you like come in here and say,
Just throw something.
We're ready when you are.
right? Yeah.
Are we moving on to the next portion?
If council is ready to move on to Measure I budget philosophy and we have closed out the work plan conversation, then let's do it.
That was my impression.
Oh, just a question. It just came to mind as I saw your face. I was like, oh yeah, I know it's your fault now. The fall and events, citywide events, are we discussing that? Would be this a point here to discuss? What we discussed in the economic subcommittee?
Like these city sponsored events, is that what you're talking about, like parades and?
I
Was
think,
it,
well,
was it that, or was it a conversation around potential seed money policy?
well, so this is where this is gonna be.
Perfect.
I think
So
this
work
is where it's
On this next one?
Measure I.
Oh.
Budget
Measure,
I.
okay.
So just wait, Joe.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
no,
it just dawned on me. I was like, oh, hold on.
So, I have to get some clarity from council about the Measure I.
Yeah.
So, Measure I is essentially a general tax. It has no restrictions of how council, there's no legal restriction on how council would expend the funds. There is a directive that goes with the ordinance that has priorities listed in it. Last year in the budget process, I treated it not as a general tax, I treated it as a specific tax in the budgeting process. Because we really hadn't had a chance to have this kind of level of conversation. We're still trying to figure out how much projected revenue is coming in. And what that meant is I looked at those lists of investment, starting with homeless, working their way down, and said, and most of them were public safety or infrastructure or parks and open space. And that's where, when you saw the list, that's when I chose, the team and I chose to invest those Measure I as Measure I restricted. So essentially, we took a general tax and we treated it as a restricted tax. The reason I go back to the deficit conversation for a second is the community gave us a chance to do investments, make progress in these areas. We wanted to see dividend. There's a 20-year cycle to the measure. The challenge with this is, as you saw, I had to move some existing programs onto Measure I. That's not the end of the world, but we're getting into this conversation. For example, I want to be able to come forward and maybe propose to council doing a community funding pool. Right now, as I read Measure I, and if I treat it as restricted, there are limitations on what that could not be for events. That would need to be for purely some kind of capital improvement in public space. Could be for a crosswalk, right? But would not be to support a group doing events, right? That's the clear bifurcation. My challenge is that we really can't continue to build until we see the dividends in the general fund. We can't build things into the general fund and then just transfer the excess over to Measure I. My recommendation to council would be is to allow staff to propose some pilot programs that help build the community and do community building and fund them through Measure I. The majority of the things would still be restricted to the use put in under that. But the challenge is also if those things go to the general fund, they are now permanented. They're harder to take out of the general fund, and they're actually harder to measure, right? You know, so when you put something that exists into Measure I, what am I saying? I'm not saying this is new. This is what the dividend you got in Measure I. We're just keeping doing the same thing as always. I am looking for some license from council to come back in the budget process and look to those 6 tenets as the major drivers, but have some ability to, while we build up our base revenue, put things into Measure I, such as a community funding pool that makes it available. So we've had very preliminary, and Jennifer's going to cover here, conversations with someone like the Community Foundation who did that in the past for us. I think the Community Foundation might be interested in doing that again, but they would want to see a multi-year commitment from the council to do a community funding pool, all right? The community funding pool also would then, so you would, they don't want to just do 1 year, they want to see things get built too. So you would go out, you do a solicitation over potentially over 3 years to see if a group gets the funding to do an event, they can build the event, maybe you're rolling them off. This is why these things shape the future. If we're using general fund for that, it's adding another obligation to the general fund.
It's also, if you're gonna redistribute funds like that, I think having a neutral third party that is in control of that is not a bad idea.
We'll cut down the lobbying on individual council members.
Yes.
Exactly.
Considerably.
You would still set the parameters, but those are the things that I'm trying to get an understanding. So as we go into next year's budget process, if I have some flexibility and I can come back with a discrete measure of what success looks like, and you would all agree to a funding scenario like working with a third party, here's what the goal is, we're going to do a 3-year agreement, we're going to use Measure I funds to cover that, see how it goes, see, it's not saying it's permanently there. Hopefully we're growing our general fund revenue during that period of time to start to move some of this stuff off of Measure I and into general fund, into the baseline. But without that, I worry that we're not demonstrating success because all we're doing is moving existing expense to do the new things that you want to do. We're moving that obligation into general fund. It's not truly a Measure I item. And then we're moving the existing obligation over to the Measure I, right? So that gives us some, the voters were very generous in giving us 20 years to try to address our structural issue. I think we need to remind ourselves where our structural issue is, how we're doing our structural issues, but I'm asking for council to give me some latitude in approaching the budget scenario. It's important because we're also going to have this conversation with the Oversight Committee. Right. And frankly, the Oversight Committee, council can do what council, I want to make that clear, the Oversight Committee cannot direct you on how to invest Measure I funds. They can comment on you, but for transparency's sake, if we're going to go into a budget process, I feel like the next step, if you all agree, is communicating that to the Oversight Committee, hearing their feedback, relaying that feedback to you, but very quickly we're running through like a month of time before we can do this. And we want to try to build these programs so that we could realize them in the next budget cycle. That's what I'm trying to do, is drive something ahead of time, because what you would be making decisions on now is a little bit, let's just say, I'm picking a number, I'm not saying this is a final number, but we're going to do $500,000 of investment in community initiatives next year, right? And you want to do like a third of it on infrastructure, 2/3 of it on community building, or maybe social services. You have a lot of array. It gives us time to come back to you, propose a program to you, working with a third party, and figure out how that award system, and it's locked into the budget. But it's going to, I think something like that would require multi-year investment with another organization. They're going to want to know you're going to do this for a few years, make it worth their while. But also, then we get in a conversation about what success looks like. What I'm afraid of is, again, you create the program, you put it in general fund, you add to the general fund deficit, and we're actually can't take credit for it as a measure of victory. So that's my request, is some flexibility, not abandoning the basic principles of that, but some flexibility to start to think about things. Plus you have a library system that's going to move back on under the roles that we're going to need some time, additional time to figure out how to deal with. And we've got the ongoing center obligations that we've got to figure out how long term. We've got a long window. It'll quickly become very, very short. This is also a way to categorize it and say it's on temporary funding right now, right? Until we figure out our bigger issues long term. So that's the kind of flexibility I would like to have. That shapes our whole process going into next year. Otherwise, I'm overburdening staff and building 2 budget scenarios, and it's going to get very confusing very quickly. So I'm hoping I can get some consensus around that philosophical approach from the council.
You just looking for thumbs up or thumbs down?
If you need to have more, I wanted to have a space where you could have some conversation around it too, but yeah. Nice.
All right, thumbs up or thumbs down?
This is not something that has risen to a level that I'm getting contacted about, like, organizations asking for money. So I'd be curious to hear if my colleagues are just some,
Yes.
because
a lot.
so it's not something that has risen to my level where people are asking for money. So I kind of wanted to hear from my colleagues.
It's coming in.
Thoughts
It's
and
coming. It's coming into the city manager's office.
Okay.
I'll give you 2 examples.
Yeah, please.
There is a group that puts together multiple festivals a year in Escondido that have been pretty successful, and they're looking for seed money for those events. And then there's one other group that does, currently all they do in Escondido is they're in the after-school program, and they do soccer for the elementary schools, but they, outside of Escondido, host soccer clinics with professional soccer players, and they're looking for seed money to host events like that in Escondido.
So events and activities, like
Yeah.
recreational.
Yeah.
And so this is something that I think I've really been struggling with. So if you want to take it, Chuck, go right ahead. Philosophically, the question is, we proposed to the community that Measure I was going to be for essential government services. You all know that. We want to make sure that without hitting those goals that we had set in prior years, we shouldn't be spending money on anything else. So we should be focused on infrastructure, public safety, economic development, etc. That being said, what I've been struggling with and going back and forth with is when we are providing seed money or when we are helping with these organizations, in a greater sense, that does help hit our goals of preserving our culture, advancing our arts, and also creating economic development opportunities. But that in itself, these events aren't infrastructure, they're not public safety, they're not economic development. So I think so long as we're able to make sure that we are addressing those goals that we set and make sure that these events do hit that, I think that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. So without these events or without funding these events is not doing anything to impact those goals, I don't think we should even entertain it. And I guess that's part of the idea of having these third party, a third party being able to verify or to prosper, and then looking at it through like a 3-year promise, I think is important. So I guess that's just my input, that's my feedback. If we're going to do it, we gotta make sure that it hits those goals.
So you would restrict it to the goals that if we were going to do, so that would eliminate some of those, because economic development is not one of the the cited goals of the measure, right? I mean, again, I can make some if-then arguments about, you get dividend, but I want to know where council's comfort level is.
Sorry,
What
I
are
was
you talking
conflating,
about?
I was conflating our goals. for
Yeah,
measuring
I think it's on the
Yes.
next page somewhere. He had it up there earlier.
The work plan?
No, so
Yeah,
we have our
it's one of our,
goals.
yeah, it's one of these goals that we have here.
So this,
This is in the ballot measure.
that's in
These
the
are
ballot,
the bullet
these are the ballot measure bullet points.
And then your work plan has what
The
you
work plan is what I'm
previously
referring to,
listed.
yeah.
So if it's
That
in the
right there,
work-
strategic priority.
Yeah.
So there's multiple, so I'll go from the top.
Isn't there a page that has just the
Just
list?
priorities.
Yes, just.
Oh, right there, economic development.
Yeah.
That sort of goes in line with that.
Yeah,
The priority here is
business-friendly,
technically
economic
be business
development.
friendly. The next priority is build trust and accountability, drive community land development, financial stewardship. Sorry, prioritize public safety, which is where homelessness lives. Restore organizational capacity.
I
Can you
can,
land on that page? There we go, then we can see all of them at once.
yeah. So, and I think, to me, I can make this argument.
Sure, and we
If-
can make the argument of economic development,
Right,
for
right.
sure.
This argument I can make. It's the more restrictive argument in the measure that I want to make sure council is comfortable with. Again, I'm not seeking to blow up that guidance. I'm seeking to be flexible so that as we build it through, and then we come through with a plan that ultimately addresses most.
Can you go back, Sean? I'm sorry, to measure that one. Yes. Yeah, it's tough. I'm not sure how we could reconcile that goal with Measure I. So,
Well, and again, we're gonna have a mid-year conversation. I'm in a need of direction from council. I was comfortable getting an informal direction here. If you want me to ask for formal direction in mid-October, I'm happy to do so. But I've got a challenge recommending adding obligations to the general fund without, I think we have a runway to plan for the future. I have a harder time adding additional new programming to the general fund. I can add it to Measure I because I can look at that as a temporary funding source, right? Is that it eventually will go away. So anything we put in Measure I potentially can go away, right? That's where I'm struggling, is if you put it in the general fund and then you keep adding your baseline needs into Measure I, and Measure I goes away, that to me is not transparency. What's transparency is saying, we're going to limit the ongoing obligations going into Measure I. We're going to treat Measure I what it is, which is a temporary funding source that needs to get renewed. But there's this question, how do we treat it? Do we treat it as a specific? Are you going to be willing to entertain me placing items that are not there? Legally, you could do the whole thing.
Can I ask a question real quick? I'm just curious. You're all hearing this. You're the community. Are you okay with using Measure I funds for community event type stuff?
Measure I funds, it was sold to me on these 6 points.
Okay, this is exactly what we need to know.
That's what we're discussing, yeah.
So it's going to be
While
hard.
some-
Yeah, it's going to be hard pressed for me to recommend community funding opportunities that are beyond that. If you're going to add them to, you can give me the direction. I'm just telling you
To
what
add
I
them to
could-
general fund.
To add them to general
Yes.
fund. I'm just very concerned about continuing to add obligations to the general.
Sure. What if there was, obviously, and we talked about this time limit, 3 years, 4 years.
But what's going to happen, because you're already underwater with the general fund, I will have to move existing
Those
obligations
to Measure I.
to Measure I. So I will fulfill the Measure I if you give me that direction.
It's just fungible.
It's fungible,
Yeah.
but in reality, it makes it harder to say you're adding new things to the community, because in point of fact, what you're doing to fund the other program is you're moving an existing obligation to Measure I.
Right.
And you're now creating room in the general fund to do the temporary program. And that makes me, I want to make sure we're communicating clearly as we get there. And you can't, if you move that funding source to that, it will be clear that that is not you're going to see in the branding, we won't be able to bring you that opportunity vis-a-vis Measure I.
Right.
So you will have eliminated, this opportunity wasn't brought to you by Measure I, because Measure I is covering an existing obligation. I don't need an answer today, but I am going to need some direction on the 15th, because it shapes how we get into the next series of conversations.
So would this be like a separate agenda item on the 15th?
It will be.
Because I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah,
Because for me, I just haven't, I support community events and arts and culture, I love it, I go to them all the time, right? I think where for me I have a hard time is that if we're gonna start saying we're gonna give money to organizations, there have been organizations that have asked us for money for decades, and we've always said we don't have the money. And so now maybe some new organizations are saying we want money, and so now we're gonna open up this process. I'm just kind of nervous about how do we get people who have been established in the community, making sure they know about this opportunity. So I would like to have a deeper discussion on that. And also, what is the goal? Because if you just need money to put on an event, but there's no like long-term goal of what your organization does, or maybe there's a gap of funding where we're so desperate for money because of the thing that we're doing, it's not eligible for grant funding, so then we kind of need the city or kind of our last resort. So there's just a lot of dynamics, I think, to consider before I'm ready to support funding something from the general fund.
So we can answer all those questions and give you assurance. I'm at a more basic conversation. Like, I don't know what to propose. I need to know how to propose that solution.
So Measure I or general fund?
That's what I'm seeking, is how to bring that forward, because it is a difference. Because I'm telling you, we still don't have enough general fund to cover. I had to shift things in the budget process off of general fund into Measure I. They fit those 6 criteria. But every time we do that, we're taking an existing obligation and moving it on to a short-term funding source. So when you add in a community benefit, and I'm not arguing against the community benefit, that's where I'm trying to shape, because back to Christian's point, that will shape what I bring, right? It will shape, is this for events, or what's it for? Because I have to look at the funding source to bring forward a pilot program to even think about and address those concerns, because there have been groups asking, there have been long-term. Does council want to set up emergency funding for a group? I would say that in itself is a challenge, because how do you adjudicate an emergency? Everybody's emergency is going to be different, right? So I'm laying out that this is a quandary council has to wrestle with for us to get into next year's budget process. I took it out of your hands. I made it simple by just saying, okay, we're going to treat it as specific jacks. I'm moving temporary funds. I'm moving existing programs in. I worry about continually doing that and then adding to the structural issue on temporary funding basis. But before we proceed into how we're going to do this, I need to understand what's the funding source I'm looking at and how is council going to treat that funding source. So I want to make it clear, we would be talking about funding source before we would be talking about specific programs out there. Because I don't know how to structure that without understanding where the funding is going to come from reliably and what council's expectation is.
Understood.
So,
And just another thing too, I could put out there, I'm okay holding off on this as we're working on other things. As far as like, we have other priorities, I'm okay pausing on this.
But I would just say.
But I feel like the easy thing would be like, maybe not.
Well, I'm just looking for direction. That's what I'm looking for. But it will shape how we get into.
I
the
think
next
we got the
process.
answer, though. You kind of gave us the answer in that until the general fund is balanced, we can't put this in Measure I right now, so let's focus on making sure the general fund is balanced before we take on anything new.
Okay, and I will.
Unless
I
you
will,
disagree.
I will reschedule that for affirmation, so that you have some time to think about it. I don't want to, because I see hands going up.
Well, I just need
Yeah.
to say something.
Yeah.
I have received, as soon as some community leaders saw that being done, existing general fund programs, we'll call them that, and being Measure I money used, immediately I started getting phone calls. This is about new money. This is not about new programs, new money for this. This is what it was voted. So I think this is an important conversation that we need to have.
And that's why I want to surface it, right? Again, legally, you can do anything with this funding source the council decides. I want to make it clear, there is no legal restriction on the council. Okay? There is policy conversation.
But there is moral restrictions.
I'm not disputing that.
Well, I know we're all politicians here,
I
but,
just,
right,
this will
still
make
have
it
some morals.
clear.
So it sounds like we're coming back to this at the October council.
So to confirm that that's the way we're sticking
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah.
And I can't, and again, but again, that answers questions. There are groups knocking on my door right now and I need to be able to give them something back that this is where council's policy is on this issue. Yeah.
Sean, can I add one thing? Just for context too for the council, I think it's important to note. So these are the priorities that were outlined in the ballot measure. It is a general tax, as Sean's articulated, but I just want to remind you that you did pass the Measure I oversight bylaws and gave them explicit direction to monitor the investments based off of those priorities that were in the ballot measure. So the metrics that the oversight committee is going to be looking at expenditures is contingent upon do they match what was in the ballot. So you'd have to maybe request that they update their bylaws.
But
if they're
that's
gonna change
exactly
that.
why I said
Yeah.
we have to have a conversation. You have a conversation with them. Are they comfortable? All right.
Okay, revisiting October, moving on to our branding refresh.
Can you come more often to our meetings and make sure we stay on time?
Pretty impressive, right?
Right
on time.
3:02, wow.
She's behind on your clock.
I'm sorry, it's really late, or really early.
Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share this with you guys in a formal setting. And I'm Teresa Collins, I'm the Assistant Director of Communications for the city, and with me is
Jennifer Shenek, Director of Economic Development for the city.
And so we're here today to review the current city branding, the brand refresh and style guide, to show you some examples and use cases. Jennifer's going to go over real life application and how it impacts economic development, and then look at the next steps for us. So our goal for today is to keep growing. Today we're going to provide a review of the style guide that you've all had the opportunity to review already, and to familiarize ourselves with the common themes that we have been putting in place and look to expand upon. We hope that you walk away with an understanding of what our branding means and how you can use it to help support the city's official messaging. We're always open to direction for refinement, and ultimately we're looking to receive your support in this initiative. So I'm going to go over a bit of Escondido's identity and how we got to where we are with this refresh. So why a brand refresh as opposed to a total rebranding of the city? What the refresh does is help us reinforce the standards that are already in place and some of the good things we have that are already working. And it helps to strengthen our current identity, and that helps us listen to our community and hear what they're saying and build upon those themes as well as we sought the help of an outside consultant who has worked closely with our economic development team on their branding, especially around ag tech, to help us really strengthen some of the common themes. It also uses our same core logo with removing the tagline City of Choice to help us really help with our storytelling around placemaking and really dive into some additional campaigns using Escondido and not really focusing on what does the City of Choice mean. You know, that was kind of ambiguous. So what's included in our refresh are new themes, cleaner graphics, a more consistent use of our logo and our color palette, and clearer messaging that aligns with the council's strategic priorities. And we started with the work plan, which you all have seen, and thanks to Joanna and Zach helped us really hone that in. That's currently falls within the brand standards. So it's a really good example of an application. So the outcomes, again, are just strengthening what the city already has in place, the good things that are working. It adds in intentional wording and phrases about how the city is evolving and growing. And it helps us as your communications team ensure consistency and trust and transparency with our community, with the goal that everything that officially comes from the city looks like it came from the city. So these are the pillars that the consultant helped us identify and really pull out of what's currently out there. That's authenticity, honoring our heritage, our community, and the things that make Escondido really special. Our opportunity and growth. This is really focused around economic development with all of the potential for our businesses and personal growth here within the city. And then a generational connection. One of my personal favorite things about our community is how we connect generations, how we have multi-generational families who have really deep history here, and how Escondido can be a place for you at any stage of your life, whether you are born here, raised here, chose to move here, you're a third generation Escondidan, whatever it is, there's a place for you here in Escondido. So you've seen this, but just to review, these are our two fonts that we've adopted as the city's official fonts. There's both a serif and a sans serif font to be used interchangeably and as the design calls for. This is our primary color palette. A lot of this plays on the natural beauty of Escondido, and also we lovingly call it City of Choice Blue, but it is officially now sapphire blue and a deep blue, but also really helps us with some bold colors. However, as we move through this, there's something I do want to talk about, and that's our secondary color palette, which really came from our website. When we relaunched our website, we ran into some ADA compliance issues with only having those colors. And in order to maintain our commitment to keeping our ADA top-notch, we had to add a secondary color palette. The fun part of that was we got to introduce a little more what I'll call whimsy colors, which are the turquoise, this kind of deeper copper, and that grape purple. It also really matches and marries well with those primary color palette. So we're just going to explore the themes a little bit. So here are some taglines that could go in place of City of Choice or be part of campaigns. One of them is authentically Escondido. I think this speaks to the fact that we have so many unique things that are just true to our community. Grow a good life here. This can pertain to business or personal growth. Grow with Escondido, same thing here. And then a little more fun, Escondido vibes. This is something that speaks more to tourism and the work being done with Visit Escondido. And these are just examples. We anticipate that these will change and grow with us over time or be modified as the need arises. And these are kind of the one-liners that go with those themes. Rooted in heritage, ready for tomorrow. Grow your future authentically. Our life isn't manufactured, it's lived. Generation strong, growing forward. None of these are in play now. These are just examples that we've been looking at and thinking about different campaigns that could mobilize around this. And I think a lot of these we will see come to life when our new management analyst arrives, who will be focused in our social media presence and our outreach. So here's an example in business. This is a Grow with Escondido, an example of a social media post using some of our new strong stock imagery. This is our new set of photos. We've committed to updating our stock images of the city annually. You can see what a supporting message might look like. Some of this is, lofty and big picture, and some of it will have call to action. This is kind of more like, let's grow together. Let's see what's happening in Escondido. We also want to grow our employees. So this is a current banner on the employee intranet, which is as employees, it's our place to go to find all of our forms and templates, policies and procedures. But this is focusing on Team Escondido Keep Growing. One of the things I love about attending our employee recognition breakfast is seeing just the amount of longevity and career here at the city, and also seeing how people have grown and evolved at the city. I know in my personal journey, I've had the absolute pleasure of working here for 13 years, and I started as a management analyst supporting special events and economic development, and now I have the pleasure of leading the communications team. So I think this really speaks to how you can grow your career with Escondido, even when you're just starting out at an entry-level kind of position. For speaking to our visitors, this is like kind of the summer vibes, the more fun for Visit Escondido. We could see this as a street banner, signage in the downtown or in the East Valley area. There's just lots of things that go on in the summer that are unique to Escondido that really, Cruising Grand, night markets, things that we see that are evolving that we can really enforce and promote. And then our community. We had the beautiful gift of our arch. We've been leaning into some of that imagery lately of really looking at the Art Deco motif that we have at City Hall in the downtown and that we see in the arch. And we're starting to utilize that a bit as we're working on the Creek Trail project as well. So this will also become familiar in the imagery. So now this is kind of the part that I think Jennifer and I had a lot of fun putting together. These are some use cases that are actually in play today. So this is our short-term rental collateral. You're gonna see the color palette, you're gonna see our fonts, and these are the door hangers and the postcards. The Public Art Strategic Plan, this is a great one to review for the community if they haven't had a chance to look at it. Not only is it beautiful to look at because it showcases so much of our art, it's completely interconnected with that branding. Our downtown sign package, while we are under construction of phase 2, this probably looks very familiar to all of you because I know we made a great effort in spending time in the downtown, but this was the first time we utilized the sidewalk decals, A-frame signs, posters, banners, pretty much you name it, and we had it, and it all was in this branding. Our library move. This is an interesting one because this marries our branding with the library's distinct branding. Our graphics team, who I'm so very proud of, and they are just so creative, they came up with this idea of the book suitcase and the wheelie suitcase, the carry-on luggage and your checked luggage, but with the idea that the library's on the move. This also shows how we do all of our outreach material in English and Spanish. Sometimes it's not easy to put it on the same piece of collateral, so sometimes we do have to create two. But these were the yard signs that we put all around the perimeter of the library. The city's social media. So this is just a snapshot of our grid. You kind of see the type of information we're sharing here, but it all looks like it goes together. We curate this on purpose in this way, and I'm really excited to see what our new team member will think of this and how they will continue to grow this. But because I took this from my view, you can also see how many views we're getting on some of these. So this kind of shows what the community is liking, and they're generally things with movement, as you can kind of see in the videos. And then this is kind of my bulletin board of things we've done recently. And you can tell in this that they're all in the same fonts, they're all in the same color palette, they all look like they're some sort of relative of each other, likely cousins. And it gives you kind of a look of what it looks like. The nutrition program's a good one of when we put English and Spanish together. I grabbed the splash pad flyer so you can see what a Spanish only, the water quality report in English and Spanish, the Go Slow and ESCO logo, environmental programs, that's their sticker, outreach sticker for their events, our Grand Avenue limited edition logo that we did, the employee workday, and then our Measure I branding. And on that note, this is a look at our Measure I signs and vehicle stickers. So as we just discussed, excuse me, some projects are fully funded by Measure I, so those will have the brought to you by Measure I. Things that are partially funded will say brought to you a part by. And then we have some generic Measure I at work for you. So these will be A-frames that the teams will deploy out in the field when they're working. Fence banners for things that when we start like fencing off, like maybe you know, an upcoming new project that will go in the fencing. Any vehicles that are purchased using Measure I will have this vehicle decal put on them. And then the square banners are something we're working on. This is something new, we haven't done yet. To put on all the work trucks, as Public Works is working on filling a pothole or something like that, it would be able to be deployed.
I really like that.
Thank you. Thank you. And you see it falls in line with our color palette and also our fonts. And then Zach had up the website earlier, so you saw the logo in use there. And so from here, I'm going to pass it over to Jennifer. Thank you so much.
So economic development, we're really focused on how are we creating wealth for community benefit. But I think most people in the community can just think of us as the sales and marketing arm of the city. So I'm going to walk through some of the strategy and the logic behind how we're getting these beautiful messages out. You just saw some great imagery that the communications team has made. But how do we really utilize this beautiful brand to communicate with the residents and businesses and who we're looking to attract into the city. So 50 milliseconds. That's how long it takes for somebody to make a first impression. And it takes on average about 7 exposures to a brand, to these images, to the name Escondido, for somebody to make a decision. Whether it's, am I going to visit Escondido for the first time? Am I going to go to a restaurant for the first time? Or am I actually going to go locate my business to this area, or am I going to buy a house in this area? So there's a lot of power in repetition and repeat exposure. By having this brand and this consistent messaging, now we can leverage it through our strategy to repeat what we're about so that we can really build this community identity with the community. So when we talk about marketing and sales, that's a private sector mentality, but it has a lot of application to how we are operating in the city. So I'm going to talk through these briefly, and then I'm going to show you an example of how we're doing this at the city. So first we start on the marketing side. This is really creating awareness. This is that general visibility through digital campaigns on social media, at events, in the media. Interest is that portion of interaction where people are compelled by the content. They're like, okay, now I'm gonna actually regularly follow and check in on what's happening on these digital channels and at these events. Consideration is when somebody is becoming more dedicated to your brand, they're feeling it themselves, they feel like they own it. And then the intent is what action are they gonna take based on how they feel about your brand. And once somebody has intent, that's when they kind of move into this sales side of the funnel. And this is where we're looking at how do we continue our messaging to influence someone into making a decision to buy at our local shops and restaurants, to move here and move their business here. So what does that look like practically for how we're operating today at the city? So first we look at awareness. So this is Visit Escondido's social media channel on Instagram. Teresa showed you what the city's Instagram channel looks like. This is operated by a third party that we contract with. And it's been very effective at building awareness and increasing community engagement. From there, we hope people are then going to our events page on Visit Escondido. You can click to it from that Instagram, and this is when people are starting to get more hooked, right? We're generating interest. So now they're going to this event site, and we are tracking all those metrics on the back end. How many click-through rates are we getting in addition to views? So once people are on this page, maybe they'll scroll or click on this a couple of times before they actually commit to going to an event. And then that's when we hope they actually go, right? So something like the street fair downtown. That's one of our most heavily visited events throughout the year, the spring and the fall street fairs. It gets the most foot traffic according to our data that we have access to. And at these events, what we really are hoping is that we can further engage with the community members who are there to get their specific feedback on projects that are happening in the city. So this is the Your Escondido tool that was mentioned earlier that Teresa and her team launched. But any city department now can utilize this branding and the messaging, put their survey on here, and then deploy it. So we'll be doing this at the upcoming street fair with a business engagement survey tool where we ask citizens walking by and visitors, what kind of businesses do you want to see in Escondido? What kind of businesses would you like to work at in Escondido? And then here is really where we're analyzing intent and moving people from an interest category into a sales category. We have this really big funnel to capture interest and to understand if people would like to provide their contact information for us to continue to engage with them. This is our customer relationship management tool view on the back end, where people can write us messages and then we respond to them and say, and help them get answers to their questions, specifically for economic development. And this is where we start to build those relationships with businesses and potential businesses. So when it comes to how do we market and go through the sales process, we're looking at taking this beautiful brand that you see and activating it. So investing in campaigns to our target markets, utilizing our target audiences that are outlined already in the comprehensive economic development strategy that was adopted by council. We need to be where that target market is. So work with our consultants to hire influencers, as we've been doing through Visit Escondido. But then also, we want to make sure our staff is present at events in town and outside of town to make sure we're talking to those audiences where they are. And really important is this kind of staff up to follow up. The more we engage the community, the more questions they're gonna ask, the more they're gonna wanna hear back from us, right? It's the worst when you try to reach out to a company or an organization, you get nothing back. So we wanna be very conscious of how are we showing up in our responsiveness as well. With that, I'll pass it back over to Teresa.
Thanks, Jennifer. So I think just to sum it up, what we're looking for today is we hope that this is a helpful walkthrough to see some practical applications for the brand. We want the affirmation, that's the right word, that the messaging and the brand and the colors and the fonts and all of that is tracking. Looking at removing city of choice officially so we can start to phase that out to leave room for more placemaking taglines, like the example of Go Slow in ESCO, and to help, it just helps with our flexibility to support more programming, and then continue to support efforts like Jennifer just outlined of actually putting the brand in action. And that'll be incumbent upon the communications team to be enforcing those brand standards with each department, and then also educating our staff and empowering them to really embrace it.
And part of where this transitions is, as we think about the future, for example, it has practical applications like how we do signage in our parks, how we do signage every day, as opposed to what we're doing right now. I think the team has talked about the monument signs. Not that monument signs aren't a bad idea, but they don't seem to be consistent with other things. And so this is about launching into a consistent space, a flexible space that's more campaign driven than, and actually looking at what's going on in the community, what the highlights are, as opposed to imposing one statement on top of the community. It has a diverse reactions to the community, but it also starts to penetrate like how we do things, right? If we do a wayfinding space downtown, it would inform how the color choices would be consistent in the look across the city, and then people would start to get that. So we don't, it has that real, it starts here, but then it has that practical application to be a reference point for us moving forward. And again, a lot of cities are leaving sort of, the city of was a period of time. It's now what are you? It's a quicker reaction, it's looking at a campaign, it's being able to respond to an event, and it relies on what you have. I mean, there's a beautiful design coming forward with basket weaving, which, thank you, council member, which could now become one of our fundamental logos and how we tell the story about the creek trail. I mean, I could, you know, those are the things that we're making each of those things special and unique, and really move from that fixed point in time to this sort of more placemaking and more place definitions. So that's where we're looking for an affirmation from the council that this is the way to go, and then we can start really moving this through the organization, and it'll be less piecemeal in our approach.
I like how you simplified the logo, because you know with branding, you see the logo and it tells a story because of everything. And I like the consistent color palette because again, it's just going to evoke that same feeling no matter what it is you're showing. So I like the brand refresh all the way instead of rebranding and starting from scratch. So I thought that was really smart, so they wouldn't have to be figuring it out. I mean, they're already familiar with it. And your idea with the staff, having the staff to follow up on, all the inquiries, I really appreciate that. I'm wondering, you said something about, who it is. We have to think about who it is we're looking for, that we're trying to attract to the city. One thing that I didn't see, and I've spoken with the city manager about this, we have a lot of sports tournaments, events. People have come from Hawaii, Canada, Alaska this last summer for national events. And then we have Ryan Park. I mean, we have all these things going on that I'd really like to see if we could add, this as maybe what we offer.
Absolutely. And I think
not just
part
parks, but sports.
And this branding can be used across the city for different programs and initiatives, from recreation to environmental, but within the comprehensive economic development strategy that was adopted, sports tourism is one of the key industries.
Good.
And so this branding can be utilized to create specific campaigns to those individuals that are coming into town to visit, or to attract tournaments into town as well.
Because I like the different, how you had the different things that we had going on in the city, and I was thinking, where's my park? So that'd be good. Thank you.
The one, can we go back to the slide that had the different taglines? Yeah, that, thank you. Yeah, I do love the colors. I think just the logo that we have is very like agriculture, and like we're inland and so in the hills, so I really love that. So everything is great. Here, are you kind of are we wanting to use all these depending on the topic or the area of focus, or are you kind of looking for us to hone in on one tagline?
No, we're not. That's actually what we're not asking. We're
Okay, so
asking
these are the taglines.
So we're asking to add to this, right? This isn't where we're going to stop, right? This is Go Slow and ESCO. This is like each campaign will have a tagline associated with it instead of City of Choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I like
it will move from City of Choice to, we're actually going to demonstrate we're a City of Choice because we're going to have a tagline for each of these campaigns and initiatives.
You just said Go Slow and ESCO.
Yeah.
And no offense to anybody in this room, Escondido Vibes sounds boomerish. ESCO Vibes.
So funny we talked about ESCO vibes, I like that actually.
Yeah, Go Slow. ESCO, everybody knows what ESCO is.
ESCO vibes does sound better.
Yeah.
And then I'm also curious how this translates in Spanish. Because sometimes literal translations don't sound good. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like.
So two things. One, same with the top one, or the second to the bottom. Grow with ESCO instead of grow with Escondido. Good. It rhymes. And then two, to Deputy Mayor Martinez's point, is how it goes with Spanish. I think we need to be careful with how how it translates, because, and I don't know, I haven't thought about any of this, but we live in such a meme culture. I would hate to like have something sound like, if you translate it to Spanish, sound like slur or something
Yeah,
like
for sure.
vulgar. So I think that's just something we gotta also.
Yeah, we've had
be
internal
cognizant of.
staff feedback on the authentically Escondido, the translation and how the sentiment around it. So some of these will, if we're using them in Spanish, we will be very mindful of that. And we do have on our team certified bilingual employees that we check pretty much everything that's leaving. And when we translate, we ask one to translate and a second certified employee to review and affirm the translation. So we will be very mindful of that.
Great. Well, we are at 3:30 right on dot. Any final feedback, or can we give a thumbs up?
This is phenomenal, by the way, and this is another one of those things that people in the community have noticed.
Yeah.
Who we were and who we're becoming. It's excellent.
Your opening page, I think actually had a really good tagline that would go well with this, which is "Let's keep growing."
Let's keep growing. Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep growing. I think would be a good one to have on there.
It's more engaging. I really like how engaging it is.
Because it keeps me
It's
in the
it's
future.
inviting. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
they
I'm
could- they're gonna
hearing
keep looking.
ESCO is the way to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Somebody write that down.
Doing it.
Well, thank you for the time and the thoughtful.
Sorry.
I still have something because I had to leave for a cough attack. Did somebody call the fire department? Because I saw them drive by slowly and look at me as I was coughing. But anyway, great work, thank you very much. Regarding Escondido becoming so much sports. In October, I have a representative from Japan coming to meet with me regarding baseball. So talk about somebody coming from such a far away just to begin to talk about children's baseball in Escondido. So I love what Councilmember Fitzgerald was talking about. But other than that, and I like the ESCO thing. I think it's much more, yeah, who we are really. I think that's cool. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Good job, ladies. Thank you.
Can we take a 5-minute break
Yeah,
again, just real quick?
absolutely.
Before we wrap it up. Well, we didn't all just walk around for 5 minutes.
For 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
This is the whole. Right here.
A little getting there. Okay. Yeah, you like it so far? Thank you. No, it's. What was that? It's a group effort. Fun.
Yeah, some cities.
Doesn't do nothing to me.
Yeah, and so the fact that it's so economic.
I did send Zachary a check on you though, because I'm like, he's not coming back.
No, I was in the bathroom by that point.
Oh.
I was like, I better go wash my hands and might as well take a break while, you know. But thank you, I appreciate that.
I'm still growing.
Yeah.
Still growing.
The ketchup tan. I'm listening, I'm just grabbing my.
You
okay?
Went down the wrong way and.
I know, once it starts, you can't stop it.
I swallowed a pill the other day.
I needed to.
It was stuck like it.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah, I
give her a show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
You as well.
Bye, Zach.
Bye, thanks.
So you got some more.
What's that?
You got some more.
Oh, I did. This is gonna be my drive home treat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally.
Does he want to?
I don't know, I just had it queued up.
Yeah, no,
Go
cool.
on or not.
Yeah.
Here's just one.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Do you want me to go through? Do you want me to do that?
Yeah.
All right, I think we're ready.
Okay, moving on to Prop S and cannabis policy. The purpose here is to provide some direction to Sean regarding possible next steps around Prop S or the development of a cannabis policy.
So this has been, these two items have been on the work plan for a period of time. The challenge has been, frankly, not enough staff capacity. And in addition, timing issues. As council well knows, there were decisions to be made after the last community survey about what to move forward, timing-wise, what might impact other items. Mike's going to give a little refresher on Prop S, and then I can talk a little bit about cannabis. But we want to get clarity on what the council is shooting for, if anything, in 2026, because that will impact the work plan. And it's a pretty already thick work plan, you know, and I want to make it clear that staff created this, not the council members, and the wording and in the distribution list. And so it is the city manager's concern about capacity and prioritization that is driving this conversation. But I didn't want to leave these two questions unanswered because community members are asking about them. So I'm looking for, and Mike in addition are looking for some direction on where we want to go in these conversations. So Mike, I'll turn it over.
Sure, and I feel bad I'm following what was a very creative and colorful presentation, and this is going to be about as colorful as an eye chart. So. But it really is an opportunity to kind of walk back a little through history on what Prop S. You hear a lot about it. You're having developers and constituents come to you talking about it. So this is kind of an overview, just a few slides to just talk about it. In a more structured way. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of how that came to be, what does it include, some of the legal considerations that we all have. This is not a closed session that we have visitors, so I'm going to be somewhat restricted in how I'm going to talk about some of these things. HCD's been approached about it. We'll talk a little bit about their response. A creative solution that has been proposed but has not been implemented yet by a potential developer. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the ballot measure and voter survey that was done back in April of '24, before Judy was here, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but just kind of a revisit of that history. What I want to do is talk a little bit about what are the potential alternatives to an effective and successful approach. If we want to look at what to do with Prop S, if we want to look for a smart and sustainable development plan, is this an impediment to that? If so, how is it? What can be done about it? So the measure was put on by initiative back in November of 1998. I note, almost as a footnote, that it was during a gubernatorial election. And the interesting part of it is only 24,000 voters voted in 1998, 13,300 voted for this. So 13,300 residents set in motion over the next 27 years what is Prop S, also known as the Escondido Growth Management and Neighborhood Protection Act. It passed by 60.32%, with 48% of the registered voters casting ballots. It has never been legally challenged. It has been reviewed multiple times, but we've never had a legal challenge to it. It resides in our general plan as it was initially enacted back in November of 1998. To give you a sense of what the citizens were looking at when that came to be back in 1998, the arguments in favor and against were, as I indicate here, meaningful voice in growth, protection of quality of life, the concerns that you might have 3 of 5 council members making development decisions that are going to impact you and your property value, and you need to constrain that to some extent, and to develop or to change what is a developer influence system. The arguments against were, if you're allowing citywide elections, you could be allowing people who have no real localized interest in a project voting on things, and so that's not appropriate for localized neighborhood projects. It discourages essential revitalization, and it would impact and deteriorate quality of life because it's a repressive business and growth policy. By its terms, and this is probably the most important slide as we talk about what is it, how does it impact us, it does change the general plan to require certain amendments to the general plan only occurring after majority vote of the people at an election. So general plan amendments and new special plan areas, specific plan areas, cannot be adopted without vote if it increases residential density permitted by law, it changes, alters, or increases general plans of residential land use categories like rural, estate, suburban, and urban, and it changes certain residential designations to a commercial or industrial designation. In other words, it's zoning what was residential into a commercial or industrial designation. It also readopted and reaffirmed certain general plan policies. Those are really not, quite frankly, much of a debate right now. It just really just brought them back to the voters to readopt them. There was a carve out for those projects that were already had their approvals as of August 5, 1997. One interesting part of that is that it includes a provision that the council must take steps necessary to defend it vigorously against any challenges to its validity or constitutionality. So built into the system of the general plan is that you've got to protect against anyone who's trying to change this. If the council approves a change, you've got to bring that to the voters, and it's got to set the election. And there's certain considerations for that. You've got to bring it to the next general election, you're going to pay the cost for it. The proponent of the project won't. If it's going to be at a special election, then the project proponent would be bearing the cost of that. The only time, at least in my experience, in 2021, we had questions about whether or not you could rezone from a non-residential to a residential, whether that would trigger Prop S. Council adopted a resolution, 2021-109. It does not. We've never been challenged on that, so it's a little bit of something if we're looking for changing what might be a commercial or industrial to residential, Prop S doesn't apply. Two of the interesting parts of whenever you're looking at a proposition or statute, any kind of law, how is it to be interpreted and constructed by courts or juries who are going to look at it? In this case, by its own terms, the measure shall not be construed to interfere with the rights to obtain density bonuses or other entitlements available under affordable housing laws, or limit the rights of entitlements under affordable housing laws, which is interesting because in 1998, times were different than they are in 2025. The laws have changed, as everyone knows, the way California has added all sorts of laws, particularly since 2018. This was already built into the system for Prop S, that affordable housing, density bonus is something to be protected. And as is true with any kind of initiative or any kind of vote, you've got to bring it back to the voters if you want to amend it or repeal it. HCD was approached by a developer who wanted to ask whether HCD would take a position on whether or not Prop S was unlawful under particularly the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. It made three arguments. The first and third are quite frankly, I don't think are as important as the second. It was saying that it was unenforceable under the Housing Crisis Act. HCD a couple of months later came back and says, we don't think there is a clear violation of the Housing Crisis Act or other state housing laws for which HCD has enforcement authority, which is of course interesting because we know HCD has taken aggressive positions on other things. But they said, for our view, based on what we're reading, we don't see it as a violation of state housing law. What it would do, though, HCD would be continue to examine our housing element, which includes a discussion about Prop S as a potential constraint. And so we continue to monitor our housing element to see whether or not Prop S was having that impact. Another creative, novel approach is to whether or not the density bonus state laws can be used as a means by which you can limit its application. And so you could have a case where a density bonus project comes before you, and as a matter of a concession or incentive, you could say, well, the cost of bringing this project forward for election is so expensive, it's not going to allow this project to pencil. And so looking at the bullet points at the bottom, the developer, the applicant would be asking for relief from the voter requirement because it would create an identifiable cost reduction for the project. There's a series of, again, constructions and interpretations for the law, including the laws for density bonus are to be liberally construed to allow for development. So you say, well, if this is a closed case, you should be using this to allow for more development. We could not make the required findings that you cannot have these concessions because that involves health and safety laws, a violation of federal state law. That would not apply here. The development and standards, there's a case out of San Diego, City of San Diego, where it could include initiative requirements like Prop S. That's one of the development standards for which they would be seeking an incentive or concession. And this is always true, state law is going to preempt in a general law city a local ordinance. The city would maintain the discretion to amend its general plan, so that would always remain. That's always going to be important. And of course, Prop S, as I just noted, acknowledges state density bonus law, as I just read. So if Prop S is accommodating, acknowledging, and accepting density bonus law, then this would not be inconsistent with it, this approach on the density bonus. This has not gone through. We do not have a completed application for this. This is just a theory out there of what may be one way around it. The other thing, and this is what I was talking about, Judy was not here in April 2024, so just a revisit of history. We put to the voter, as a matter of our resident survey, what they would think about taking Prop S and doing something with it. So the question posed to the survey residents were, how would you vote on a measure to amend the process from electoral to public hearing if you were going to increase density? 36% said yes, they would amend the process to take it from the electorate and put it into a public hearing. 46.5% said no. And 17.5% were unsure. I'm not sure the way the question was phrased would have been sufficient, just based on no other education campaign, just that was the information that they heard as part of the survey. 53 to 31% opposed and supported the building higher density project. So that was also asking, so as we drill down into the residents as a part of the survey, we're testing other issues for them. So if you were going to see development changes, what would you like to see? The top 3 answers were parks and open space, downtown mixed developments, and suburban residential. 19% were interested in seeing high density residential. Again, further drill down, and this, I think this always adds an interesting question as to what people understand to be workforce housing, but 72.8% were interested in building more of that, but only 39% were in support of building more housing, even in my neighborhoods. You have a little bit of a NIMBY, right? I mean, a little bit of a NIMBY approach. Workforce housing, what does that really mean to people? It means certain things to certain people, but 72% think that that's a great idea. It may be in the way you sell things, it's the way you brand things, but that certainly was an interesting fact that our residents were reporting. So that's kind of the quick overview of Prop S to set the framework for our discussion.
And I think this is where we get into a workload conversation. What this would require, typically when you take land use items to the ballot box, you've got to go through an educational process so that, because exactly this, what does it mean? What are you talking to? What do you need to educate people? And since land use is complicated, even in the simplest terms, that's where you're going to be spending your time. You've got to spend time going through focus groups to understand what the electorate thinks about these issues, what education you need to provide to them. That's always a heavy lift. There are groups out there that will perform that, but again, supervising that, getting that on track is not easy, and you would need to elevate that to one of your highest tasks if you wanted to take that on. I'm going to transition, because I think these things go together because they are workload, is the cannabis conversation. Last time we were in the cannabis conversation, the results of this survey were actually that there was a over 60% support in the communities for creating this process through taxation to create these potential places. In that survey question, there was I think we picked a random amount of I think it's 11 licenses that would be out there or something along those lines. There was a requirement in the ballot language that employees go through a background check to PD. That's basically what the question asked, and it got a survey. Once again, what I've put in front of you, and for the public, it's in the book that Zach has up front, is how complex these actual measures are, community by community, and the work that you have to do through your planning department. And one of the things in front of the planning department that is just starting to pick up initiative is this focus on standard operating procedures, permitting. So and then we've got a general plan process that we're contemplating coming in the future. There are, just like anything, there are multiple ways to tackle this issue. One of them is this thick booklet, if you were going to assign this to the planning department, of what their recommended steps would be to go through to organize a community-centric way of developing what it is you're going to place on the ballot. I would say, again, that would be a heavy lift with everything else council has prioritized, and I heard it repeated again. Permitting, process improvement is the first line of the conversation.
If we were to agree today, yes, we want to explore this, what kind of a timeline is it? When about would staff start, and when do you think?
I think that's where I would need what the clear goal is, right? That's why I'm asking the question now. There's still time to put it on the ballot for 2026.
And that's what I would like to see.
Well, and if you put it on the ballot for 2026, the question is, are you okay with council coming up with the guidelines for it, which is very simple. It's what the community did in Vista. It wasn't the council, but they named the criteria and it was council. If I'm asked to go through a complete work plan, we can get it done, but I'm going to have to pull back on some of those other improvements council is looking to get done.
So I think, sorry, can I?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what we've been talking about a lot about our budget. We've been talking about our deficit, all that. The point of having cannabis here is to increase tax revenue. That's a point, not the point. So I think if we are to address this, and if it were to be successfully implemented, I think that would address other issues that we're having. So I think it would be worth having it as a priority.
Well, I will tell you then I'm going to need more time to do process improvement in the department because I'm going to have to draft staff members. So it's a question of.
Help me understand the question you asked.
So again, if council's willing, because you're going to have to do some of these designation work on one side or the other of this question, right? Right now, you've got the team, and the team's working very diligently at doing process improvement, standard operating procedures, which have never gone through, and I've told you, been not down there for 30 years, right? They're committed to doing this. If it's simply a question, if council wants to put something on the ballot, say, these are the number of dispensaries, or the number of licensed providers, here's the district. If it's a simple question on the ballot, Mike and I can work on that, and we can deliver that in plenty of time. If you want to do a community vetting process, you've already got other community vetting processes underway. They require a huge amount of staff resources to do. So the question in front of you is, I'm willing to do it for 2026. What I need commit from council is, I would urge you not interrupt that other things when you've got the energy to actually make a difference, because the city manager's tired of hearing, nothing's changed in 30 years, right? If you don't take this opportunity to finish that work and you reassign prioritization to this, it will interrupt that work, right? If council's willing to put this on the ballot with some basic precepts, saying, here's the number that we're gonna do per district, if you're willing to have that conversation as a starting point, that's something Mike and I can craft with a subcommittee of council that doesn't, but it doesn't, we will still have to do work some on the other side of that. That's getting structured into place. If it's a question of attacking for 2026 and getting something on the ballot, you already saw what that basic thing tested at. That thing tested at over 60%, right? The question is, what do you want to do? Where do you want to place this type of work? Because you're going to have to do some of this work, but you can still place it after you bring it on the ballot.
I like the subcommittee idea, because that still gives the community an opportunity to be a part of it.
So
that's the simple.
Can I speak on that real quick? Just because I'm hearing about getting it on the ballot, and so we just had Measure I pass, which is a huge win, and then we're talking about repealing Prop S, which would be another huge win, because there's the housing crisis that we have here, and we talk about development, and that's really what our community needs, and it will provide the tax revenue that we're seeking long-term. My position on this is, I'm not for it at all, and I don't think we need to pursue this for 2026. If there wants to be more discussions, I think we should have that. I don't want to distract staff or you two.
So Prop
but-
S would have the same, would actually have more impact.
We wouldn't
on
be able
staff.
to get, even if we
Yeah.
wanted to.
I wanna just be
But
clear.
just on what we
There's not enough
focus
time.
on,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what should we focus our time on? And it should be things that are going to benefit our city long-term versus chasing fast and easy money that may have negative consequences in our community. I don't want a cannabis sign hanging next to the Mercedes-Benz sign. We're going in such a good direction. We saw the presentation of what we're doing in the city, the branding, trying to attract tourism, businesses, high-quality hotels we're talking about, you know? And then we're gonna bring this. And we can, I mean, I could give an argument, and you guys have heard everything as far as why people are against it. I've heard a lot of why people are for it, but with it comes a lot of seedy stuff, and that's not what we need in our city. And I know.
It's already here.
Well, it is, but that's not gonna make it go away. There's this argument that somehow opening it here is gonna make it go away. It's actually going to create more work for our law enforcement, because that's still gonna happen. And then with that, you don't think that illegal things are gonna be happening here? There's robberies, people paying cash because of, you know, as I was saying, you know, the state or whatever it is, federal regulations, thank you. They get robbed and that's underreported, so they're getting assaulted. There's a whole host of issues. I don't think, we are going in such a good direction, the trajectory to elevate this city, that the opportunity to do that is now. And this is just gonna, you know, just put a stain on the work we're doing. So pause it or ignore it, but I just don't think this is good overall. It's a quick buck, but there will be consequences, and there's just a lot of work that's been going on that we're doing right now to make this city look good.
So we've talked about moving forward at the last revision interview over a year ago. You know, the date on this is 2024. And I remember so I think what I hear you saying, Sean, is there's one thing about putting it on the ballot as if we're able to, if we create a program, we're able to tax it, and the voters saying, if the city creates a program, you know, you're saying yes to taxing it. It doesn't mean like we have to have the program ready by 2026. I would be in favor of that. Let me tell you why. I don't use cannabis, I can't stand the smell, I don't want our young people using it. So personally, I don't like it. However, I do know that the voters have voted to legalize cannabis. I do get asked for years, even before I was on council, you know, why do we have a ban on it, like other cities have it. I think we need to get ahead of this, because I don't want what happened in Vista to happen in Escondido, and that's that a program gets put on the ballot and then we
Citizens
lose.
initiative.
Yeah, we lose local control, and then before you know it, we have 15 dispensaries
Yep.
that are around schools and kids. This way, if we at least say, let's tax it in the future when we have a program, that gives us a longer runway to implement it, where we can continue to go along with the plans for our work plan. I think it lets the voters know that we are listening, and then we pull in police, compact, all the stakeholders to have meaningful community input on what would be acceptable for a community. So I hear you, Councilmember Fitzgerald. I think there's a way to do it with the opposition, to say what is acceptable to begin with. Maybe it's 2 dispensaries, maybe, you know, again, but we don't have to figure out those details right now. The main thing is putting it on the ballot to say that if and when we create a program, we're able to tax it. And then that gives us, like I said, the longer, it lets people know that it's on the radar, it's gonna happen at some point, but it doesn't commit us to, you know, doing it at a specific time. And then again, whoever's on the council at that time, the stakeholders, the opposition, working with them to say, hey, what's acceptable? How do we mitigate for youth, and making sure we're not, you know, having more, you know,
To your point,
issues.
no, I just want to emphasize what you said about the citizens initiative, and I think that's the point that the mayor and I made last year, is getting ahead of it so that we have control of it
And I
over a
was
third
just
party.
approached in the gym 2 days ago by somebody who said that they're going to do a citizens initiative if we don't do it.
Right.
And if that's the case, we lose control over it. That's a
Right.
huge risk. Yes.
Well, I'll speak. I've been consistently against cannabis. I haven't had a problem with us looking into it, studying, and trying to get the results, the research back. I've spoken about the question my first wife had when in pain, taking cannabis, using it. Ultimately, she decided not to. When I was approached when we, a number of years ago, started talking about this, and a compact came in, the police department came in, families came in, a lot of them came in against it. At that point, we were told a number of times by different organizations, we're gonna put it on the ballot next time. We're gonna put it on the ballot next time, and it hasn't happened yet. But clearly, it's been, and I wouldn't doubt that it would happen at some point. The way I see it is the implementation. I can't walk down the street, because I went to Las Vegas, and I was like checking it out, and I can't walk down the street.
You were checking out the weed in Las Vegas?
No, I was checking out but thank you for asking and giving us a moment to laugh about something, not about something, but to laugh in the middle of a discussion. It's a serious and tough discussion, all right, and I appreciate that. But I walked the strip and looking, and there was one dispensary after another, and I couldn't walk down the street without the smell. And I mean, so I was like, okay, what used to be a place where you wouldn't take families, then it became a place to take families. And now I'm really seriously thinking about, yeah, I probably don't want to take my family anymore, because I can't walk down the street without having to deal with that, okay? I did the same thing in New York, all right? I walked around and I was checking out, all right? And there I was surprised with all the stuff outside, the pages. This was for kids. These dispensaries were designed, the color palettes, now that we talked about that, right? And I'm like, okay, setting aside, is this what I really, would want to expose my 8-year-old to that? My 19-year-old to that? Is it a gateway drug? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that have to be. Now, does somebody have the right to use it? Absolutely, you can do it. Do it in the privacy of your home. And I mean, I go to the pool where I live, and now I have to deal with somebody deciding to smoke pot while all the kids are in the pool and stuff, 3-year-olds, and and oh man, I'm not gonna call management and say, hey, somebody's here smoking pot, right? Not gonna do that. But unfortunately, I don't see a lot of respect for those that don't want to deal with that, and with those that want to, and vice versa, right? This is a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. This is a two-way street. And I think this is the place where we need to talk about this, right? We should be able to open up and say what we need to say, and then listen to those that disagree with us in all directions. I firmly believe in that. But I still haven't heard anything that would cause me to say, yeah, let's put it on the ballot. I have serious concerns about that, because once we put it on the ballot,
How many votes does it take to put it on the ballot? It is 4.
If you're establishing a tax.
If you're establishing a tax, it'll take 4.
Are you
pretty
finished?
much, yeah.
Okay.
That was my last question that I was gonna ask.
It's interesting because it may not seem like it, but we all share the same concerns. There is a real argument to be made if you compare us to, so you mentioned Las Vegas, New York, go to San Diego, you run into the same thing that you just mentioned. There's a little bit of a difference between major cities like that and cities like Escondido and Vista. So I've asked how many times, asked a few questions. I'm trying to find out how many calls for service have been made from the 11 dispensaries in Vista. That one's a little hard to track down. But the answer I received is 0 robberies, and to date, not one instance of selling it to children.
I don't want to interrupt you, Mr. Mayor, but I would like you to finish your thought, but I don't want to, I would figure you'd like to be the last person to speak. So I
No, you're
forgot
good.
one thing is, am I okay?
Yeah.
All right, so, the last thing was, I went around asking a lot of businesses, and they say, oh yeah, I'm in favor, let's open a dispensary. And I'd say, okay, great, let's put it right next to you. And then immediately it was, no, not here.
Same as housing.
All right?
Yeah.
But hey, you know, and that puts, that's a reality of the business owners, right? So that was just one more thing that I wanted to mention.
And I've talked to John Franklin about this at length on several occasions. His answer is interesting because he is staunchly opposed to cannabis. Didn't support the measure that happened in Vista, but he will also tell you he's been pleasantly surprised because there were a handful of illegal dispensaries that all shut down after legal cannabis was implemented. And if you look right now on Weed Maps, you will find people who are from Escondido delivering marijuana to people in Escondido, and it's unregulated, and you get rid of 99% of that. And again, the one place children do not buy cannabis is from a dispensary. It's nearly impossible. Outside of like the is it right or wrong conversation, there's the other side of this, and should the government be telling adults what they can and cannot do in the privacy of their own homes? I get why that still brings reservations because people are not respectful of those around them. But like you mentioned in the housing, well, the proper response to that would be to go to management and get it addressed. That's what I would do in my apartment complex. But should the government be not only telling people what they can and can't do, but is just ignoring it like it's not a problem? Is that the correct response right now? All things that need to be considered and all questions that can be thoughtfully answered and responded to in a subcommittee where the community can have input. What year was that when cannabis was voted on to legalize in the state of California?
I think 2016.
2016, and I think Escondido voted 50-something% then, and it's only gotten more support. So it's not just chasing a buck, it's not about the money. We all share the same concerns. I think there's a real argument to be made that if you do it the correct way, you're actually doing more to protect children. We're not preventing anybody from getting it now just by ignoring it. So anyways, we're in an interesting spot because it takes 4 people to put it on the ballot, but we only have 3 people here who are a yes. So the question then becomes, is it still worth pursuing that simpler version that the city manager mentioned?
And I think just in the spirit of, rigorous debate, I think you need to talk about not only the risks of doing it, but the risks of not doing it, which I think you've touched on.
I mean, as long as the assignment counts, the city attorney and I'm speaking for Mike, don't have any issue drafting something and having a formal conversation. My issue has been doing a longer, taking staff off the stuff that you've already outlined to me. 100%. So if we're simply drafting something and you all are having a conversation, I got no issue with that. And
That's not
then you can
subcommittee,
have
right?
that.
You're gonna bring
whatever way.
something back to the whole council.
Yes.
Even better.
Well, I would still recommend starting with a subcommittee.
Okay.
To focus down, because there are a couple questions, and I would need that subcommittee to make some determination, to make a recommendation, right? So, but as long as the assignment is in that sphere, then the whole council can have a conversation. Because it's really, we're just having a conversation about workload and workload management ultimately, right? Where my concern is that this quickly tips into a longer, deeper planning session that I'm pulling in and activating a whole load of staff resources.
Yeah.
So if there's a majority here. You clearly need 4, right? It seems pretty deep divide here, but that's for you guys to decide what you want to do it'd be like anything on, needs 2 to put it on a future agenda. That'd be essentially where we're at, right? So that's what I would just say.
Okay.
As long as the assignment isn't that, you can wait to make that decision, frankly, at the next council meeting instead of right here, if somebody wants to advance it, because that's how you could do it, right? As long as I get an agreement, what we're not talking about is doing this work prior to anything in 2026.
Understood.
If that's how you want to handle it. Gives you some time to think about it.
Perfect.
And we can revisit. Prop S, there is something else, as council knows. We've had ongoing conversations with HCD around a couple of topics. I would not poke that bear until we've had some chance to get better understanding about those other priorities. That's also why I'm saying it's a huge lift. It's had even more of a lift than the cannabis because of the education. It's not just doing research, it's actually doing a whole slew of community. I would ask the council to defer that until we have better understanding of the already assigned conversations with state agencies. So I'm looking for an agreement on that.
To defer.
To defer Prop S to the future, not to abandon it, but this has, as you well know, this has implications to other things that we're in conversations with state HCD.
Agreed.
About, that council has already lined out as priority items.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a rush with that because I just feel like seeing the numbers of the surveys, there isn't some community support for changing Prop S.
And we should be open as well. Should some developer come forward with an application that makes sense, and that's something we can certainly consider at that point. The council will have the opportunity to review an entitlement application that has Prop S implications to it, and then we can move forward from there. So that discussion was really more designed to talk about bringing it as a ballot measure, which is that education lift that we're talking about.
And and if we were going to bring it as a ballot measure, we really need to start that work for 2020.
So what I'm hearing is we are going to pause Prop S for now, which means we will not start the work of putting it on the ballot for 2026. And we have agreed that we don't want the cannabis to be, whatever it turns into, it's not going to be the big lift for
Correct.
2026. Yeah. Okay. That's the clarity we need for now. And is there any decision about revisiting? Thank you.
There's always an option for a council member to put something on a future.
So there's nothing going to be happening unless one of us initiates it.
Yeah,
what are we putting on the agenda? The subcommittee?
I would say, Mayor, you could always set up a subcommittee, and then the subcommittee could make a recommendation. You have it within your.
Do I need to make a motion to put up a subcommittee?
You
Just say I'm doing a
You would have to
subcommittee.
agendize it.
Okay, well, let's agendize the subcommittee.
I'm asking that a subcommittee be formed and nominate someone.
I'm gonna ask a follow-up question. Who would want to serve on that subcommittee?
Oh, I can do it. I can do it. Unless were you wanting to be on it?
There's a part of me that.
Yeah.
You're talking about cannabis.
Yeah, for cannabis, there's a part of me that thinks there could be a healthy balance with like Joe and Consuelo or Joe and Christian, but let's think about
That's
it.
true.
It's on the agenda, so
Yeah.
we got time to think about
Okay,
it.
so that's being.
But you'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
And Mayor, can I clarify?
Yeah, and I don't care either way.
Could you specify what would the title of that subcommittee? Do you want to just focus on cannabis? Do you want it, or is it like ballot
Yes,
measure?
it's
Is it just
an
cannabis?
ad hoc.
Ad
It's
hoc
an
cannabis. Okay, I just want to be clear on that. Okay.
Yeah, ad hoc, yeah.
Okay.
Right turn.
Anything else that we need to discuss before we move on? All right.
Sounds like I'm gonna get volunteered, right?
The last agenda item that we have, and we're a little bit behind, but I gave us some buffer called wrap up, is called Council Policy and Procedures, and this is an opportunity for you to talk together about any changes you want to make to how you work together, your processes, the expectations you have. This is kind of your space.
I have something. So, my colleague, Deputy Mayor Martinez, has a number of times raised issues about subcommittees reporting and things, and we've had a little bit of chat and banter back and forth on the dais, because the way we do things, there's only two of us that can talk about city business, all of that. Maybe we should talk about implementing a formal report from the subcommittees at a certain amount, certain time to full council, just so full council is informed, we're all informed, and then we can have a discussion, and then we go back. It doesn't mean that we're done with our work, but this is where we're at. And then we go back with some direction from everyone.
Can we
An
have,
idea.
we can't have a discussion
Yeah.
on it though.
We
If it's
already
agenda.
have subcommittee reports as an item on your agenda.
But you're saying generate a report from the subcommittee. Well, wouldn't that just be sharing the meeting minutes?
We're just having a
Yeah,
discussion, right?
yeah. Well, I was thinking, this is, you know, so, I'm just kind of like trying to figure out how we could find I think, a positive solution. And if it's agendized, then my
It
thing is,
is.
can we get some discussion back to start getting a sense of what the community could be involved, because it's agendized, plus the entire council, sharing the minutes and answering questions, maybe something as simple as that.
Yeah, my recommendation, if you want to engage with the community and have just a dialogue amongst yourselves, would be a separate agenda item, because it's really just listed generically here.
Yeah, and that's
So
kind of what
that would
I
be,
mean.
that's what you're talking about, so.
Yeah.
If I may just add to the conversation, so we do not have a formal subcommittee policy as a city. We obviously have ad hoc, we have standing subcommittees, that's the extent of it. So I've put together a draft of a subcommittee policy that would actually look at formalizing these processes and creating report outs, as well as looking at the structure of the subcommittees and potentially aligning them with your council priorities. But that is something to be determined. I have a draft of that already ready to go, but it would just require
That's
kind of
great.
the count. I can pull it up if you'd like me to.
Well,
I don't know if
no,
Sean
we
wants
don't-
me to
we-
do that.
we
Yeah,
don't
that's too
have-
much.
if you want- This is about marking it, and then we'll bring
Like putting a
it
pin in
back.
it?
But recognizing that the need here
Yes,
is,
yes, that's
we
what
would like to
saying.
have a space for more council dialogue around what's happening in the subcommittees.
A more official report out.
Yes, or
we can-
official and
Yes.
regular
And
cadence of
since there
reporting.
has been work done, what I would suggest is bringing that work forward for that conversation.
Okay,
That would be my suggestion.
I like that. I do like that. I tried to kind of bring this up in the boards and commissions subcommittee when I was part of it, and we needed to finish the conversation because then the commission changed. But just something where whatever the committee's working on, kind of bringing it and then getting input and then going back, instead of just like seeing something after, not having
After it's
had
done.
time to go back and incorporate some of the comments, because it's hard to do that, I think, on the dais for the first time and then finalizing at that time. So I appreciate that, Councilmember Garcia. I think that's thoughtful, and I would like to see that. I think it would be helpful and also make me feel like, because I'm not on a lot of these subcommittees, the policy-making ones, and I feel like it would, allow for more of a robust discussion and consideration of going back. I also think building goodwill amongst each other. I would appreciate not having the 2 council member rule, as just a show of goodwill and teamwork. And also because the rule doesn't apply to you, Mayor, because you can put something on the agenda with just one, So I feel like just for consistency and goodwill with each other, and I feel like I do compromise a lot with you all, I would appreciate having, I would appreciate having the 1 council member putting something on the agenda. And if that needs to be revisited because, it was abused in any way, I would understand that, but I don't feel like ever was abused to have that implemented, but I do feel like that just doesn't set a positive tone. So being that, again, you can put something on the agenda with just 1, but then for us it requires 2, that, inconsistency, I would appreciate having it changed back to 1.
I still have to live by that same rule. I always ask for a second.
All right, so I wasn't done.
Sorry.
I wasn't done. The other thing that I would like to be considered when it comes back is that when the appointment's made for the subcommittee members, I think it'd be good to set who's the chair of the subcommittee. Because otherwise, we're all kind of like, well, who's gonna,
Is that
who's
part of
gonna
the-
lead it?
Yeah,
That's
that's
part
part
of
of
the
the
policy.
policy as well.
Okay.
Great job, Zach.
Hey, Zach is
He's on it.
ahead of me, all right.
That's true, because we don't have those.
No, we don't, and I think it's a good idea, just good practice just to have it, because otherwise you and I take in turns, and it, you know, so anyway.
Where does everybody want to be on their subcommittees? Have you been on any for too long? Is there one you have not yet served on that you would like to?
What I would say.
Is there one you don't want to serve on?
Just what I would say regarding that in general is that I've been changed from some committees, and even regional committees, when I'm beginning to get a flavor for it, and then boom, I get changed, and then all of a sudden I'm having to relearn some, like I'm on NCTD, I'm finally beginning to understand the state's whole wall thing that they have about NCTD, I mean about public transportation, and then all of a sudden next year I'm gone. And it's like, okay, now I'm gonna have to go learn something else new. So I think that consistency over, it doesn't mean a forever thing, but I think that's important, helpful.
I wonder if that's true across all subcommittees, or if there are some that have a steeper learning curve and would be better served with consistency, while others maybe would be better served by
That's a great
turning over
question.
review.
Sort of. Now we're talking two different conversations, though. One is the interagency assignments, which I wholeheartedly agree with you, and then subcommittees, which are a little bit less demanding.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just needed to say, because those assignments are all done at the same time. So that's why I was like,
They
yeah.
like it can like
So
house
give
it.
me- Yeah. But that's
Other
true.
responses for Mr. Mayor?
I'm interested in the economic development subcommittee.
I'm interested in economic development and homelessness. Those are ones I have not served on.
I'm interested in
I've
those
served
two.
on- I've
I'd like
served-
to stay on
I've
it.
served on
And we're
others.
starting the housing
Okay,
development.
that's good to know. Consuelo, you said,
Economic development and homelessness.
and is there anybody who would be interested in serving on the Sister Cities subcommittee?
I would.
I would too.
I think we know the two.
Is there any committee you're on now that you don't want to be on?
But I don't want
Another question, as we move into more regular meetings with the Utilities Committee, is there anybody that does not want to be on that or that does?
And
I'm
I will
okay staying on it.
Can I, this
Please.
is one of those ones where I do think consistency is
Yeah,
going
I
to
agree.
matter in the utilities subcommittee. Because this is, you sort of have to look at it as building to a rate study. So I would urge that you do look at that from that perspective.
Who was on the
I think
rate?
we
Because I
should-
was on
Wait,
utilities,
Previously.
Who was on the rate study one?
me and Mike.
That was Mike and Christian.
Yeah.
Okay, because I have not been, I'm assigned to utilities right now, but I've never met.
The first
utilities.
one is
I'm not
October.
exactly.
They previously only
And I
met once
really-
every 6
Yeah,
years.
and I don't necessarily want to be on utilities.
You
I'm
don't
willing-
want to?
No, I'm,
Okay.
I'm,
I'm good
I
being
will-
on utilities. For that consistency.
yeah, somebody else, would you like to?
No, no.
And number 10 is.
I'm tired of
I
being
don't wanna be on
on
utilities.
utilities committee.
All right, one at a time, please.
By the budget.
So what now?
Number 10 doesn't really exist.
We're waiting to remove any of them until we get the
Oh.
policies.
Yeah,
Okay.
just.
For example, 10
Okay.
and 11.
Mr. Mayor, did you catch that Councilmember Garcia was interested in?
Oh, I'm just.
There's two Garcia.
Oh,
Sorry.
he's
Commissioner
going.
Garcia.
He's going, yeah.
I do like numbers, yeah.
Anybody else absolutely not want to be on utilities? Because it looks like I'm volunteering myself.
I've been on utilities for a long time, and all the meetings that we've had, I'm really tired of that. I've never been on one meeting since
Joe and Christian
I
it
was
is.
elected.
All right.
It's as fun as it sounds. So,
It'll be even more fun.
Nebraska, well, Lemon, you want to take a spot?
What about,
Okay.
I saw my name on Kellis.
CCA.
Oh, it's the RFP. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so those two no longer
Those are
exist.
Those are
supposed to go away,
those are
but
not
not-
existing
yeah.
anymore, basically.
And I have, and just FYI, I have been on the CCAE subcommittee. So if somebody's really excited about getting into that space, I'm willing to like give that one up to, for one of the other ones to see.
I'm already on it. So.
If someone's really excited about it.
Anybody wanna be on CCAE?
I don't mind, but I'm just, I open it up to whoever.
Okay. Anything else you want me to know?
If we have a revelation, want us to send it to Zach or you or what?
What's the right way to do that? Zach?
Yeah.
That's it.
Perfect.
I wouldn't mind being on the CCA.
All right. I got what I needed. Thank you.
So no interest in changing the rule back to one?
I like the smile.
I did, too. I really saw that.
Well, I guess I would ask, I mean, do we need like a second right now, so we
Well, I
can
just,
have
well,
it?
I mean, it would
What
need to be
is
for a
it?
future agenda, but I'm just wondering if anybody's open to that. I'm just asking. Since we're talking about this, I didn't ask for this to be brought up, so, but you opened up the space for it. So, whoever put this on, you know?
I mean, did I make a mistake bringing up the discussion? I thought that's what we were supposed to do.
No, you didn't.
There-
Whoever put this
There'll
on.
there'll be a chance, I mean, we're bringing back the policy and procedures, so there's a chance in that conversation to make amendments in that
Okay, well,
conversation.
please think about it. I'm ready to see.
I'll second that, but I mean, we're not doing that now.
Okay.
Sure, why not have a discussion on it?
Thank you. When it comes up, I can think.
Anything else with respect to your own policies and procedures?
Oh.
Go for it, Joe.
I was just gonna say, and nothing against my colleague and friend, but the reason why the mayor has the authority to do it by himself is because it's citywide that he runs. And that was an answer that I, in a similar context, I received when there was a different mayor. And that's why I have, I've accepted that, okay? So Mayor didn't even know I was gonna say that or anything. I just feel that that's part of our rules, and the deference comes because the mayor had to run in the entire city. So, with respect.
I have a question about just future planning and just FYI since we're here. So a lot of cities have like recesses, like summer recess and things like that. And people were asking me like, oh, are you on summer recess? I'm like, we don't have recess. We have meetings like 4 times a month. So I would just like, I think what would be good for future, I know our calendar's set for this year, but maybe for next year, and I don't know what my colleagues think, but it would be nice to kind of follow some type of consistency with the schedule. Like maybe we do have an official recess for like planning summer vacations and things like that. Because before it used to be that we meet on the first 4, we can meet up to the first 4 Wednesdays of the month, but there's some instances where we meet on the 5th Wednesday. So I just feel like it's a little inconsistent with how we schedule things.
I agree with that.
And I would love to have something where we can plan 6 months a year in advance and know that we can rely on that. So, like, because all other cities do that. I think we're the only ones, to my knowledge, that doesn't. Like to actually have a summer recess. Let's have an actual summer recess or a legislative recess or something. Anyways, just wanted to put that out there because I think it would help with everyone, even staff.
Well, I do like because you're right, I mean, there's like, we're not meeting on the second Wednesday this month, that's weird.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
so
random.
even if it's like the first 3 Wednesdays of the month, and then the 4th is not. and
Well,
then-
there's a reason why we're not meeting on the second Wednesday, and that's because of,
Conference, League of Cities.
League of Cities.
I just threw out a random day.
But that then this is what happens, right? So when we take a second Wednesday off, there's business to get done. And that's what it starts activating the 5th Wednesdays, right? So it's not to provide the opportunity, and when I got here, nobody went to go to cities, right? So nobody went to that conference, so that's probably why it was more, why it functioned in that way. Now that we're doing things like National League of Cities, Cal Cities, that creates more stress on the calendar by taking those opportunities. So you're right, second Wednesday was off, but it used to be just easier to just say, okay, every 5th Wednesday, we're not gonna do it. But that has business-ish impacts to do it. We can talk about it. I'm happy to set it up, but that's why it's happening. It's because when we get to those, this organization was very, very internally focused, didn't take advantage of those opportunities, and so they never conflicted with us, conflicted with the schedule. But that doesn't mean we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
We can put that, when we're working on the spring retreat, we can talk about calendar.
Yeah, and I love to take vacations too, but the stressor for my items, litigation items, requires closed sessions sometimes in a little bit of shorter basis. So I always try to be mindful of times off, but that's a stressor at times.
Yeah.
If I may, I was just going to add more for getting some directions. I have the draft calendar for 2026 ready to go, but working with Sean, does the council want to consider a structured summer break, like a July off? Not talking about how we cadence all the other meetings, because right now they're structured around the different travel.
So what I want to get in the conversation with you all is by budgeting every 2 years. So that we're not going, because that's a huge lift for the organization.
That is a lot.
And that would mean more future planning, but I think that creates an opportunity for taking more of these structured time off, because we're not perpetually in this cycle. So as long as we can add that to the spring conversation, how do we get to every 2-year budgeting? You still have adjustments, but you get into a 2-year planning cycle, as opposed to, we seem to be right back in budget every year, right? And the fact is, the budget alters somewhat, doesn't, but it helps us think in those 2 increments. So I think that creates the opportunity to, like, a dark July, if we can get into the 2-year budget cycle.
Or August or something, yeah. Or even if it's 2 weeks, something, a consistency.
I always was under the sense, the way I sensed it, the 4th of July Wednesday is off, and then as best as I recall, we usually have the next Wednesday off also. So for me, I was kind of like, oh wow, this is my summer break, right? We have plenty of work to do, but so I don't know if that was purposely done to kind of give us a little bit longer time.
It is purposely done, but
if we're looking like a summer break for a month or something.
So, yeah, but not everybody has the same, the challenge is it makes that 2 weeks the only still restrictive. If you have the month off, it's a lot more reflexive, and in fact, staff that also helps staff, right, as we get into those kinds of conversations. Because typically now, July is the month where everybody has off, especially if you have family, et cetera, and so forth. It tends to be consistent. I'm willing, we do have that 2-week window that we take. I'm willing to get into a more conversation if we can sort of start to think about how we do business in that way. A lot of cities have moved to the 2-year
Interesting, I haven't heard that.
structure.
I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
Oh, real quick, Zach, do you have any 5th Wednesdays on the 2026 calendar?
Currently, no.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because that's what it says on our website. Okay, and you wanted to say something.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so we build in a winter break and a summer break that are already built in there, but they're only 2 weeks.
Okay, that's fine.
They generally give you 3 weeks.
Knowing in advance.
But
that we
there are
have
other
that.
cities that could do a full July.
I think that's fine. 2 weeks is a good time. It's just that it seems like there wasn't, it was kind of random when they happened, and so it's hard to plan.
There's the timing purposes, but also when it comes to the election year cycles, there's that last meeting before the deadline to get an item on the ballot. So we made sure we scheduled specific August meetings that dictated kind of backwards on when the summer break happened. So that's why it's a little inconsistent every other year, because I try and build in one more meeting before the deadline to put something on the ballot.
Yeah, and I always know like June, that's usually when I would take summer vacation, the last week of June, but that's that's always reserved for the budget in case,
Correct,
and so I'm
yeah.
always like, hey, budget.
July
the
tends to be
budget
the
does
best
mess
time
up.
to have.
The June, yeah, the last week of June is always sad because I can't take a vacation. Okay.
All right, so let's recap what's been decided and what direction's been given. With respect to the work plan, we are making 3 adjustments. We'd like to further develop the sister cities in a subcommittee. We'd like to make sure that the homeless subcommittee is articulating a clear goal and aligning the measures and tracking with that goal. And we'd like to shift some focus to traffic safety and fireworks. Measure I, budget philosophy, we are going to agendize this in October and come back to it. Brand refresh, we're affirming, thumbs up. We've agreed that we are not moving forward with the big lift involved with like a full cannabis policy. We may form an ad hoc cannabis subcommittee to bring a proposal forward, but that's going to be discussed at a meeting in the future. We're deferring on Prop S for 2026. And in terms of policy and procedure decisions, Zach is going to bring forward a subcommittee policy that can include addressing things like formal or regular cadence of updates and discussion and opportunities for feedback. The one council member agendizing change is flagged for consideration. And we're gonna come back to calendarizing and what it's gonna take to transition to a 2-year budget planning cycle in the spring retreat.
And the chair on the
Subcommittee chair, thank you. All right, any assignments associated with those things? Anyone that needs to be tasked with follow-up?
I'm tasking myself with following up on creating the subcommittees and reconfiguring all subcommittees.
Great, thank you. And you're bringing that back when?
When can I bring it back? 2 weeks?
Yeah,
It's up to Sean.
Let's
Subcommittee
look-
boss is ready.
Let's look at the calendar, because the next 2 meetings are very, very full. Very, very full. So I'll work with the mayor about scheduling that.
Yeah, because we have full agendas through the 15th, right?
Yes.
For October.
Oh, first and the
Very busy
15th
meeting.
are completely full.
Okay.
Any other follow-up, any other assignments?
No?
Would you like to open public comment back up?
Anybody that would like to make, guys
Greg
figured you would.
Oliver. Greg Oliver signed up, and then we'll go to Stevens.
I'm Greg Oliver. I sit on the board of the Escondido Fire Safe Council, and I wanted to talk about fireworks. We were on the Fire Safe Council where we were approached 4th of July in January, on New Year's, from lots of residents about their concerns about fireworks residentially going off all over the place. We've done an examination, and they're obviously illegal in Escondido, and we spoke with the police, and it's an enforcement issue because there's such a low rate of capture. They send out and expend resources on finding somebody who's shooting fireworks off. But when they get there, when the police finally get there, there's nobody there. It's not happening anymore. They don't actually see the person doing it, so they don't cite him. We've spoken with, in order to resolve this, we've spoken with a lot of California cities that have had the same problem. And in Riverside and Hemet and Inyo, they've employed, like the city manager was saying, drones to do this work. And they increased the fines to a level that mattered. In Escondido, the fine is about $100. And in some of these other places, it's as much as $1,500. So when they use the drones, they changed the law so that if we're shooting fireworks off on your property, it's your responsibility. So the drone is equipped with GPS. It sees where the fireworks are being shot off, and it takes a picture of them. And then they just mail the person a ticket because it was on your property and it was happening. So they just mail them a ticket for $1,500. And I think it was Riverside, I don't really remember, it was either Riverside or Inyo that raised $930,000 the first year. And the second year, the incidents reported were 1/6 the level they had been before. So they reduced the incidence of this happening by 84%. And that was in 1 year, and they said it was enough to pay for the drone program. So, and they've got to multi-purpose the drones for other purposes. So all in all, it looked like a solution. We have put out petitions at places like veterinarians and pet groomers for people to say, we have problems with fireworks going off residentially, to show that there's an appetite in the community for this to change and for the enforcement to be done. So that's all I had on that. Also, being part of the Fire Safe Council, we've had meetings with Chief Tyler Batson regarding the CWPP going through, and I'm kind of foggy on the procedure because we're just putting
I'm
together.
sorry, Greg, your time ran out, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Steven.
I'm going to try to be brief. If I heard things right, I hope the cannabis discussion continues to advance. As I understand it did, and correct me if I'm wrong, Honorable Mayor, you committed to a future agenda ad hoc agenda item on the cannabis initiative or advancement? I ask that any decision maker on this issue base it 100% on data with source documentation identification. I've heard it here today, and we're going to hear it in the future. Anecdotal reporting is recognized as possessing zero weight in your decision making. Regarding resource constraints, I think I have valuable input from my drug manufacturing and my cannabis industry manufacturing to contribute to the discussion. I don't know where or when it might ever fit. You mentioned SOPs. I've written well over 1,000 of them. And at this point in my life, I work pro bono. Lastly, as this council recognizes me, a guy who has come back several times saying my faith in my local government is waning. You regained some ground with me today on that one. Not there yet, but I have absolutely regained faith. I'm regaining faith, except for the way you bombed last week, guys. And I'll address that next week. Oh, and the other thing, if you do find a place for me to actively contribute, it will give me way less time to write my sarcastic weekly city council presentations. It would be a win-win for y'all. Thank you.
Anyone else? No.
All right, is that all?
That's it.
All right, thank you to the council and staff and the community for coming. This meeting's adjourned.